Lapel, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur Lagraffi.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst. Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham.
Présent.
Madame la Sénateur Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre. Madame la Sénateur Valois.
Présente.
Madame la Sénateur Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallet.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
It seems to me a bit at odds with what.
Somebody's giving us the benefit of their conversation about it being at odds with something. I'm not sure who that is, but could they please switch their microphone off? Please continue, Mr. Griffin.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sever. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin. Madame le Deputy Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy de Gruville.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Higgins.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Masson.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Pinel.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Doublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Labby.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Wickenden. Monsieur le Deputy de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Truscott.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Guida.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy de Hegra.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Aye.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Pershard. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Gardner.
Présente. Présente.
Monsieur le Doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de le conduire tellement quand même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute l'heure de la passion est accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plaise de commettre à la soir. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons notre offense, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous amène pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous, car à toi la reine, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sever.
Excusez.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Sir, the Conotab of St Martin has a hospital appointment first thing.
Very much. Excusez.
Monsieur le Deputy Wickenden.
Excusez.
Madame la Deputy Perchal.
Présente.
Les états sont nombreux, Monsieur le Président.
Les états sont constitués. Before continuing with the debate on the skate park, Senator Moore, you've indicated a desire to have members of the Corporate Services Panel appointed at this sitting of the Assembly. If there's time at the end of public business, then I would suggest that we deal with that then before we move on to the arrangements for future business. Did that give you enough time, Senator?
That would be excellent, sir. Thank you.
Very well. We now then continue with the debate on the skate park. The Connétable St Brelade was in possibly mid-flow, but in flow in any event, and he is entitled to resume and then conclude his speech. I have seen, as I'm sure members have, an email exchange. Once the Connétable St Brelade has finished, I would propose, as a result of that exchange, to call upon Senator Farnham to explain the position. The Senate has not yet spoken in this part of the debate, but that does mean he will be replacing 3 members who have already indicated a desire to speak. And if those members, specifically Deputy Martin, the Connétable of the Connétable St Mary and the Connétable St Saviour, feel that they should speak first, then I will call them in strict order before I call Senator Farnham. Perhaps they could indicate that in the chat. Hopefully people can hear me. I see 1 or 2 people might be finding some difficulty.
So it's every time you turn your head that we lose sound. Yeah.
Well, in which case I shall try not to turn my head. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. If anyone, so that's the way I propose to proceed at this point. At the Connétable of St Brelade, it's for you now to conclude your speech. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would take us back some 13 years, I think, to the proposition brought to the Assembly by the late former Deputy Ben Fox.
No, it's cut me out again.
Well, we can hear you very clearly, Connétable St Saviour, but perhaps you could not speak whilst another member is speaking. That would be if you could mute your microphone. Thank you. Connétable St Brelade.
The late former Deputy Ben Fox, who did a lot for the skateboarders of the island, and I think we should thank him for the efforts that he made. Many of the arguments we're hearing today have been heard before, sir, and the reality is that skate parks are not neighbour friendly, and the only reason the skate park ended up at the New North Quay was because the Harbour's administration, so dare I say, missed a trick, and the proposition succeeded because there was nowhere else at the time, and it was by the forcefulness of Deputy Fox at the time that it was put in there. And it does seem that it's been popular with the skateboarders, probably, I suspect, due to its central location. Moving to the present proposal, sir, my involvement has been extremely limited, and I mention this as there has been innuendo that I've been involved in the alleged U-turn. I can say that Senator Pallas invited me to a meeting in Broad Street together with Senator Farnham towards the end of 2018, and I was asked what I thought about a skate park as is being proposed at Lekenve. And I remember saying, sir, that whilst I would support a facility in my parish, it was not ideal for the larger number of users due to its inaccessibility, and somewhere more central would be better for the island. That was followed by an open meeting at Lekenve Sports Centre, where I perceived the mood of the attending residents to be more negative than positive. I've had no further involvement apart from attendance at a recent proposition regarding the South Hill Gardens proposals, and this, whilst welcome, has certainly injected confusion into the debate. Members need to understand the accessibility issue at Lekenve, and it's easy to suggest quite correctly that buses pass regularly along La Route de Kenve. However, users will have to pass along the footpaths or housing estates if on foot, and I have so received representation from residents concerned about potential antisocial behaviour, which sadly, sir, has gone within the territory of skateboarding, as is evidenced at the New North Quay. It's always unfortunate, of course, that the actions of a few will spoil it for the majority, but one could argue that having such a facility, such as is being proposed at Le Kenway or South Hill, will give those errant youngsters something to aspire to and take them off the streets. On the contrary, sir, I've received representations from parents of keen skateboarders who are enthusiastic about getting a facility built at Le Kenway and the importance to get something up and running as soon as possible. Skateboarding, sir, is not my specialised subject, but the enthusiasm from those in the West is contagious and certainly tipping me towards supporting the Senator's proposition. In between all this, sir, we have received conflicting views from the skateboarding community, professional presentations from officers, and what I can only describe as a forceful proposal from Senator Pallett, who seems to be blaming everyone in his line of fire. And whilst we, sir, as politicians, are used to having flat thrown at us and can defend ourselves here, I cannot condone his accusations against officers and would publicly distance myself from comments the Senator has made. There is as much as a risk in my mind that the proposals for Le Kenway may not get through planning. I would anticipate much objection from residents. Likewise, there are planning risks at the South Hill site and concerns from adjacent residents. The Transport Minister's comments regarding the stability of the rock face at South Hill are, of course, a concern. I suppose, sir, my biggest fear is that the facility at Le Kenway could prove to be a white elephant and used by the specialist few and not the greater number of potential users in the island. I can see that before long it would need a proper access road and car park. So if an application is to be made, as is suggested, let's have the full picture and travel strategy necessary for a reasonable decision to be made. I would emphasise the point, sir, that we need a facility of some sort in St Brelade, whether it be the main facility or satellite. And I would conclude by saying, sir, not only that I'm pleased to have seen the email exchanges of last night, but my preference is that I want the best for the children of my parish, and it's them who I shall be supporting at the end of the day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Conor. Senator Farnham.
Thank you, sir, and can I thank members for their forbearance. Can I also thank Senator Pallett? We had some very constructive discussions since the adjournment yesterday, and Senator Pallett set out his concerns and requirements to me, to which I responded this morning with his reply, sir, and that was circulated to members a short time ago. Just to reiterate, sir, and I just run through the points very briefly, on behalf of our ministerial team and department, sir, we would aim to submit both applications, planning applications, by the end of this month. The Le Kenway application is likely to go first because it is far more advanced than South Hill Gardens, so we would propose submitting a detailed application for Le Kenway. It might be sensible to submit in the first instance, given the additional planning challenges perhaps with South Hill, that we submit an outline application in the first instance, which would allow for any further work or study of South Hill and of course iterations to the design. Both applications would be for a main skate park facility, so although they would differ in size and style. Our aim would be to deliver both projects, really good facility for Kenway and a really good one for St Helier, preferably at South Hill at this stage, subject of course to additional funding, planning and the size of design. We'll have to assess the total cost, and if required we can repurpose funds from our budget, so for any additional costs. This would not come from existing sports budgets unless they're unused, and would likely come from underspends in other projects. Our amendment does commit to further facilities in the east of the island, so that is very important, as a number of members have pointed out, and the budget for that would need to be determined. I think in relation to facilities at St John and St Juan, we'd like to engage with the constables of the parish with the view to providing some additional investment in those facilities and funding with that. I think bids would have to go into the Government Plan 21 for that, sir. Prior to the debate, as I mentioned yesterday, EDTSC ministers had agreed in principle to seek additional funding to deliver 2 key sites, Llanelwy and South Hill, together with new facilities, really good facilities in the east of the island, sir. We also support reinvesting in the existing facilities, I've said, at St Juan and St John, and we also support and commit to delivering a further satellite facilities plan for St Helier over the next 2 years. And some preliminary estimates suggest that a further £1 million would be required to deliver the full programme as set out above. And as I've said, sir, it's our key priority to to offer transparency moving forward and to fulfil the aim of Senator Pallett's proposition and our amendment. And I'm very pleased that Senator Pallett has agreed to work with us. He's been with the projects from day one, sir, to ensure timely delivery of the project without further delay, sir. So with the Assembly's leave, sir, I will ask Deputy of Trinity, sir, if he would withdraw the amendment, if that's the correct procedure, and then perhaps Senator Pallett would like to speak in line with the reply he sent to me this morning. Thank you, sir.
Well, procedurally, it is open to the Deputy of Trinity to ask members now for their permission to withdraw the amendment. We would then move into the debate on the main proposition. Senator Pallett being the rapporteur, it is only if he was going to withdraw and seek the leave of the Assembly to withdraw his main proposition that he could speak next. Otherwise, I would have to open it for other members to speak. That is the way the procedure would need to work, I think. On the assumption that the Deputy of Trinity wishes to ask members to withdraw, Deputy of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. And following on from Senator Barnum, may I thank the conversations that went on overnight, and as all of you have seen the responses, as Deputy Farnham, as Senator Farnham said. The one thing I would say, which has been a considerable help to me, is that listening to the debate yesterday, there are many issues that have come up, and I think that if we can pull them all together, I think all of us will end up with something that everybody wants. It's for the benefit of the younger children and the children of the island, and therefore I have great pleasure in withdrawing my proposition and would ask the Assembly to agree with that proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Well, members will know the debate having opened, a proposition or an amendment can only be withdrawn with the leave of the Assembly. And it is open, obviously, to members to speak on the withdrawal. Deputy Taddier, you wanted to speak on that?
Yes, sir. Obviously, something's happened overnight, sir. And I think what it shows is that this government is in complete disarray. We're talking about putting planning applications in for a decision that the state's member assembly hasn't made in some kind of attempt to circumvent what the state's assembly might want, almost as if the decision is too difficult for us to make. There's been talk about putting in 2 planning applications and then seeing which one works. Again, in some kind of attempt to abdicate responsibility for making a decision on the part of government or in the Assembly. And is this what it's come to? I mean, this is completely degenerate and dysfunctional government. We had a sports minister who in the past had done so much work on this. And of course, you're never going to have a site where everyone agrees because there are different interests affected by that. But to say that we've done a back deal overnight and we think we found a solution just goes to show that the dysfunction that I've spoken about, sir. It's like it's as if we've done this with the hospital. So actually, we don't know where the hospital is. Let's put 10, 12 different planning applications in, see which one works, and then go with that one. I don't know if I've got the wrong end of the stick, but it seems complete madness, and it seems to be done in this kind of gentlemanly manner. and I'm not criticising Senator Pallett here, by the way, because I can see it from his point of view. When you've worked so hard to try and achieve something, and you think you found the best site, and then at the last minute, someone says, you know what, why don't we stick this up on a massive hill, which is right out of the centre of town, which is completely windy and which is going to be really dangerous. Why don't we try that one and say, oh, but because we know it's a dodgy site, we're going to have to go through a planning appeal or planning process, and it might not get through anyway. So let's wait until it doesn't get through and then decide that we don't want to put it there. Absolute madness. So I think what we should do is we shouldn't be allowing the government to withdraw this. We should be saying to them, no, you haven't done the work. We will reject your amendment because it's completely flawed, and we will decide on the merit of the substantive proposition. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to just carry on from my colleague there, because what we've seen here is a debate born of frustration from Senator Pallett, and I can completely understand why. A last-minute amendment from the government which completely changes the situation, but does manage to produce some quite detailed pictures, by the way, and diagrams, which is quite an interesting process. We've seen during the debate that the complete lack of coordination of government, the complete lack of a system of governance that actually is able to make a decision. And it is completely wasted States Assembly time. And instead, what we've had is an overnight exchange of emails that could have been done way before this debate came up. And what we've seen is evidence of infighting, which I suppose we now call outfighting, because some people are not in government anymore. And some of the attitudes that have been expressed, and one of the most ironic is that the government were talking about this amendment because there was not transport and buses out to Llanelli when they have repeatedly refused to enable young people to go on the buses either for free or cheaper. It shows the total dysfunction in the decision-making process. And so I've got to say, we had an emergency debate last week to try and fit in over the hospital. We now have this debate, which has been a complete and utter waste of more than half of a day. And the government are now saying, oh, well, it was useful, so he knew people's opinions. Well, there is a way to do that, and that is actually to consult properly. So before this debate on this amendment, we were given full, detailed briefing from officers. Now, I remember back when the Chief Minister, sir, was publishing the costs of replying to our written questions. Perhaps he needs to publish the cost of this waste of time of the States Assembly, because this is not a functional government. Sir, this should never have come to this Assembly, this amendment, because it was too late. But now to withdraw it at the last minute, as I agree with Deputy Tadea, it needs to be voted on and rejected rather than doing this backdoor deal, which is totally lacks transparency. Thank you, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the question as to whether the Deputy of Trinity is allowed to withdraw the amendment? No other member wishes to speak. Then I close the debate on that aspect and call upon the Deputy of Trinity to respond if he wishes to do so.
Thank you, sir. I very much take on board what has been said, and I fully appreciate the misgivings that both the previous speakers have said. But I also wanted to make sure that we got this through, and I don't think that there's too much difference between what was really said by Senator Pallett and myself. But what I think is right is that we did discuss, we did try and get through. And I will say one thing just in my defence, having taken over in the middle of all this, to try and put everything together back to 2018, when I first saw all the written statements and everything else, there is confusion. And I totally agree with you, Deputy Ward. And it does look as if we are backing off. We're not backing off. All of us in this Assembly want the skate park to go ahead, or skate parks, put an S on it. But I think it's essential that rather than continue this debate, there is a way forward that I think everybody will benefit from. And I still go back that here we are putting children first, and it's essential that we make sure that this goes through. And I very much want to help Senator Pallett, who started this many, many years ago. And I think that if you would all consider your vote and ask that and support me and withdrawing this amendment so that we can then go on to the main amendment and then go from there, if that is okay with you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, we can put the matter to the vote. That's the appropriate time. I will ask the greffier to put a voting link into the chat. The vote is on whether the Deputy of Trinity is able to withdraw the amendment. Open the voting and ask members to vote. Very well, if members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. I wonder, could members ensure if they're not speaking, they have their microphones turned off? The proposition has been adopted, 31 votes pour, 8 votes contre, 2 abstentions in the link, and a further 2 votes pour in the chat. Accordingly,
We hear that.
the 8,
The 2, sir.
8 and the 2, yes.
So the members who voted contre were Deputy Alves, Senator Moore, Senator Mezek, Deputy Ward, Deputy Lehegra, Deputy Southern, Deputy Tadier and the Constable of Trinity, and the abstentions were Deputy Ash and the Constable of St Lawrence.
We then return to the debate on the main proposition. In theory, it will be open to debate, but if you are proposing to seek the leave of the Assembly to withdraw it, Senator Barrett, then I'll obviously allow you to ask that at this point. Senator Barrett.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I just start by apologising for members for the position we find ourselves in? It's uncomfortable. Some of the comments that have been made are relevant. So and what I'm not going to do is go into some lengthy speech here and make things even worse than Deputy Ward has just said in terms of wasting Assembly time. But I think it is important that if a solution is found that, or could be found, that was going to be acceptable to members, and Senator Farnham this morning put an email, or sent an email to members explaining what the intended route forward was, then I think it's only right that we follow that, or should follow that course of action. Picking up on the Deputy Trinity's comments around young people, my intention throughout this was just to ensure that skate park users, skaters, BMXers, young people, even some of our older skaters, finally got a skate park that they deserved and fulfilled their aspirations. And that's been my one and only goal throughout this. It has not been to upset anybody. Some comments have been raised about me, about my intentions, which are unfortunate. I've tried to be open and transparent through everything I've done, and I've certainly never acted covertly. I've always tried to be transparent, which is why I brought the proposition in the first place. There is the discussions that we had overnight weren't always easy. I think we had to we had to compromise to some degree. But I think what we've finally come out with is a solution that will not only provide the urban sports community in the island with a skate park in the earliest possible opportunity. I think it also offers skaters, users, and the community with the opportunity to have facilities elsewhere around the island, subject to funding. And I just want to make a couple of comments on funding. The funding moving forward is going to be important. One of the issues I was going to bring up, had I spoken on the amendment, was what I could only say is the shortage of funding to deliver everything that was being proposed, and that is still probably one of my main concerns. But I think Senator Farnham, I'm going to take him on his word, and take the department on their word, that they will go away and work up a funding proposal that will deliver not just the skate park at Kennervay and a proposal at Southfield Gardens, but deal with the issues that Councillor St Clements, his deputies, have brought up in the past about the lack of facilities on the east of the island. It really is important that we don't disenfranchise those that find it difficult to travel either into town or to the east of the island. The sports facility strategy, which should be released fairly soon now, and I think will comfort the Constable St Clements to some degree, is that there is proposals for a sports centre on the east of the island, and which will provide better opportunities for those in the east of the island to access public sports facilities. But I think what we also need to do and ensure, and I think we need to work with him and those in St Martin's, Grouville, and St Clements to provide skating facilities sooner than later at a site where they feel it's appropriate. It's not for us to decide where that site is. I think it is for the representatives of those areas to decide where they want a facility to be sited. I very much appreciate the offer from Senator Farnham, irrespective of what has been said about apparently my disrespect for officers in the department, because that is not the case. I've got a great deal of respect for officers, but I do have concerns about the process that was followed, and I've rightly brought that up. But I do want to work with them. I hope they understand why I brought this position and why I've made the comments that I've made. But I do appreciate the offer that's been made, and I will work with Senator Farnham, Deputy of Trinity, the officers in the department to try to fulfil, as I say again, the aspirations and hopes of the skateboard community in the island, which is what this has to be about. This is not about personal agendas. This is not about trying to score points over one or each of us. Is about the skateboard community and ensuring that, like I say, that they get what they deserve. The comments about Deputy Fox, former Deputy Fox, and all the work that he did earlier on in the mid 2000s, to provide a skate park for the island. He worked very hard to achieve that. But what was achieved, as much as it's been well used, and I think is appreciated by the skateboard community, didn't really meet their aspirations and was certainly not sited in an area where it should have been. It's a commercial port, and we've got to be cognizant of the fact that we do need to move it sooner than later. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that members will accept that the proposal or the compromise on the table will actually deliver a skate park in the earliest possible time. I think it's sensible to look further at what the opportunities are at Southfield before we commit to a full planning application. So I think there's a lot of sense in what Senator Farnham's put forward. So I thank him for that. And I will ask members if they will consider or allowing me to withdraw my proposition so that we can really get on with the hard work, because this is only about a proposal to agree sites. This is not a debate or discussion over a planning application. That's where all the hard work needs to be put in. And there's going to need to be some careful consideration by those that will determine these applications about what site is appropriate and the issues that need to be resolved. Residents will have concerns. There will need to be assessments done on both sites for all sorts of things: noise, crime, environmental, ecological, you name it. We're going to have to provide reports for it. I know at Lekeneve some of that work's already been done, but that work will have to be done for South Hill as well. So, as I say, I'm asking members if they will allow me to withdraw the proposition so that we can actually get down to the hard work. And I very much want to be part of that, and will give my support not only to the department, but to the skateboard community, who have been sorely let down at times and don't want to be let down again. And I just hope that we can, like I say, fulfill their aspirations. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Any member wish to speak in connection with Deputy Ward?
Thank you, sir. And I just want to speak to put onto the public record my real concerns about this actually going as a process that will come with an outcome that will actually be built. Because of the experience that I have had with the lack of drive and the difficulty in getting a Northwood Town community centre, even though that was agreed nearly over 2 years ago now. In fact, I'm losing track of the time that it was agreed. And so when we hear, and my fear comes from, first of all, I cannot see what's going to be done differently, because all of this has already happened. There's been agreements, there's been plans, and we're back to square one. And also some of the attitudes that have been shown, when it's clear that certain members do not want a facility nearby, and there seems to be a real attitude that sees young people as a nuisance, when what we should be doing is encouraging them having somewhere to express themselves and involve themselves in the sport. And by withdrawing this again, we get back to square one. And I wonder, sir, whether the government should drop its putting children first pledge and just simply change it to putting planning applications first, because I'm sure that's something that the whole of government can get behind, and we might see some unity for once. And sir, I just want to express my absolute disappointment in this and finish by saying there is simply no progress has been made. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. You know, I listened to this. Yes, I'm very much in favour of having a park at Lekeneve, but we have a sports centre at FB Fields. You know, we've got it already as a planned as a sports hub. Why are we actually, and we've got some spare ground up there apparently. So why are we, you know, looking at putting people up on putting people up on South Hill, which has limited transport and really, you know, is quite a long way away for everybody. Better surely to have a main hub at FB Field, where there are something like 5 bus routes that go nearby or up to it, and have a subsidiary site at Lekeneve, the main at FB Field, and just get on with it. You know, I really don't understand. I was going to speak against
Senator,
South Hill.
I have to interrupt you, because obviously the matter before the Assembly at the moment is whether Senator Pallett is given leave to withdraw his current proposition, and it's on that that the Assembly has to make a decision. The matters that you raise might well have been raised in the main debate, but they're not matters before the Assembly at the moment. The Assembly can't make any decision on those matters.
No, I just throw them in, sir, in line with Deputy Ward's comments that, you know, for goodness sake, goodness sake, cancel what's going on and actually get something sensible done. It's rubbish. Anyway, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I'm here now and unmuted, thankfully. Right, we're in danger here of walking away from a resolution to an issue. We've had the one proposition, the amendment, withdrawn. We're about, it looks like, to talk about withdrawing the main proposition. And yet all we've got is a sort of a verbal agreement of a way forward, which still has problems with the financing. The bottom line always interferes. I would advise us not to withdraw this proposition, but to go through with it. And that way, at least you'll get that half of the verbal agreement underway and active. And if there turns out to be problems with the surveys of the land, or problems with the financing, more importantly, then at least we get something. At the moment, we're in danger of walking away from a fight that we haven't resolved and getting nothing. I would open a book that in 2 years' time, unless we push ahead with this proposition and make sure something happens, I'd open a book that there won't be any progress 2 years' time. We'll still be sitting here without funding, without the nice to haves. Yes, we'd like these facilities, satellite facilities, all around the island, but we can't. We won't have that. Seems to me, I would urge us to press ahead and urge the proposer to press ahead with this proposition to make sure we get something on board, and that way we might see something within 18 months. Otherwise, we risk getting nowhere.
Constance-Saviour.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I agree with the last speaker, I'm afraid. And Deputy Ward is quite correct. We had promised a skate park, and now we're debating something else, and they've muddied the water by saying we need one in the east of the island. Let's just do what we promised everybody, that they would get a skate park at Lake Canavay. I've sat here, I came back early from the dentist, and I wanted to vote. Then I found out it had all been sort of not brushed under the carpet. And I really think we should stick with this, vote for it. And if we lose the vote for having it at Lake Canavay, well, at least we voted. But something has to be done and a decision has to be made. We cannot keep shelving things that we made decisions on ages ago. So I don't think it should be withdrawn, sir. Thank you very much.
The Contact of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. May I say what I intended yesterday, which is still relevant?
Well, only if it's relevant to whether or not this is withdrawn, Connie.
Thank you, sir. It has already been stated that one skateboard facility is not practical, whatever the location, and that satellite facilities would be desired. So why don't we take this opportunity to apply to planning for two facilities, the main one in St Helier and a satellite in St Brelade at Lake Canavay. And further satellites could be added as funds and locations become available. Though if that is as quick as installing a freshwater supply and drainage to the north of the island, in areas who don't have the main facilities, then that shall probably be never. We are voting on this proposition on the misconception that it is a children's facility. It is not. It is also a young adults facility. Many youngsters have an interest in skateboarding well into their 20s. This is not just for children, it is also a young adult's pastime and interest. Young adults are 16 years old. They are responsible people. Otherwise, why has this assembly allowed them to vote? If we are to have responsible adults in later life, youngsters need to be nurtured. These facilities will help to do that by creating an interest in a common sport, which will also create friendships into the future. We have been elected to make decisions, not to wave this off to planning, hoping that our civil servants make that decision in order to let the politicians off the hook. We need to insist that planning approve the two sites. Surely it is for us to demand that they deliver the requirements. If we don't make such decisions, why are we here? It is a question often asked by members of the public who are losing faith in our ability to make basic decisions. The hospital complex is a good example. I grew up with a fort forever being talked about, nothing done. When it finally went ahead, it was too late for me to enjoy, and it was referred to as the white elephant. Yet hundreds of thousands of people have passed through those gates to enjoy the facilities. Sadly, we have lost the fort swimming pool due to lack of maintenance, a building which could have been utilised as an indoor skateboard area. It is time to put something back. If creating a skateboard park helps to do that, then we need to do this now. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Conrad Harbison one.
Thank you, sir. If I was running Jersey Harbours, I'm not sure that yesterday's and today's debates would fill me with any joy. To me, I don't think we seem to be any nearer to making a decision on this matter. I accept that planning is a very key part of this, and I also accept the compromise that's been reached. But I think I would say it's a shame that this wasn't discussed before the today's and yesterday's sitting. And in terms of me voting for the project, I will vote to support Senator Pallett, but I would hope that in his closing remarks, and maybe Senator Farnham will speak as well, and give the skaters some assurance that whilst we sort this out, and I sincerely hope that we're going to sort this out in short order, that we give an assurance to the skaters that currently use the existing skate park that facility will continue to be available to them until such time as the new facility opens. Because if I was a skater and had listened to this for the last day, I'd be seriously worried that actually Jersey Harbour is just going to close it and I have nowhere to go, which would be a great shame and from their point of view a big loss. So I urge everyone involved, and I'm sure that they know this, that to get on with this. Let's get this done. Let's get these parks built, and let's give the skaters the skate park that they deserve. Thank you.
Well, Senator Message.
Thank you, sir. I won't repeat what others have said, other than to say what a complete shambles the last few days have been. Throwing in a last-minute amendment was clearly a ridiculous thing to do. It's wasted our time, and I would personally much prefer that we were getting on with voting in favour of Senator Pallett's proposition without it being withdrawn, and he would have my full support in that. I would vote for it. If he wishes to withdraw it, though, that's a matter for him, but I won't vote in favour of doing that because I think it would run the risk of us wasting even more time on this, and the people who we're trying to serve here deserve better than that. Let's just get on with it and build a skate park at Lekena Bay, as was apparently meant to have been the plan before.
Senator Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So I'm addressing my points as to why I have concerns about the withdrawal.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And just turning the radio off, so which I had in the background, but it doesn't seem to want to switch off, so I'll unplug it. I don't think it would have disturbed anyone, so it's a rather nice jazz version of Eleanor Rigby from FIP Radio. I recommend it, but we could probably all do with a bit of jazz after today. But let's get back to the skate park and whether or not we should withdraw. The reason I would be wary in Senator Pallett's position to withdraw, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to teach him to suck eggs, but I think he knows better than anyone about the value of promises from this government and about accepting those promises and going down a work stream when officers or other politicians say, well, look, we could do it that way, but why don't we do it this way? Why don't we just do a feasibility study on South Hill, which was what he was told against his better judgment. And then sure enough, it was against his better judgment. And I'm just questioning today whether, again, withdrawing is against his better judgment. I don't know whether there's support in the Assembly to win a majority for his proposition, but certainly he would have had the support of our party. That's 5 votes, and I know many other members wanted to support the skateboarding community in providing the best facility as soon as possible, which seemed to be overwhelmingly at Lacheneve, which is not without its problems from a constituency point of view. The reason I'm sceptical about anything being delivered if he withdraws today is because this government is not very good at action. We don't need to mention the hospital, but I know, for example, that talk is cheap and that in principle propositions are cheap. I'm still waiting for the discrimination against children in accommodation to be enacted. It was passed overwhelmingly by the last Assembly, which I was also in, and yet it hasn't been done. You know, it's not being given the priority it should have. No doubt COVID excuses will be given, and I just see this being parked again because the government is very good at doing review, and I think it's just an action in an excuse in some cases for not taking action. So if you say, look, we want to change the tax system, we want to look at changes to social security, oh, we can't do that, it's under review, we've got to wait for the review. We'd like to make changes to housing, oh, we can't do that, it's under review, we've got to wait for the review to come back and see what it says so that we can decide whether we like it, because we can't do politics, we're only politicians. And I think, again, this is just jam tomorrow. There's talk, and I think the Constable of St Mary alluded to it. There's talk about, oh, why don't we have like 2 skate parks? Why don't we have 3 skate parks? And we can't even build the one yet. You know, are we getting ahead of ourselves? Are we learning to, are we trying to skate before we can even run? It does seem slightly bizarre. And as Deputy Martin might say, this is jam tomorrow, isn't it? It's jam tomorrow. So I think part of the fundamental problem is that there are certain elements of this government, and there are always been those elements for whom it is anathema to spend public money on public good. Just remember back to the town park, how much of a struggle that was to get a much needed facility in the centre of St Helier, in what was very much an urban sprawl there in Gas Place. And it only got through by chance, of course. I personally am not going to vote against the withdrawal. That just procedurally, I think, even though I was happy to vote against the withdrawal of the amendment, because I think that was a last-minute tactic. I think it would probably be churlish on my part not to allow the mover, who's done so much work on this, not to withdraw. But I do just voice those concerns about what he can expect and what the Assembly should expect. We can't vote for this withdrawal today and expect this government to take any meaningful action. I'm concerned that we'll just see skateboarders treated again as an afterthought. And if you look at the facility that has been crammed down to at the Maritime Museum part of the harbour is an absolute disgrace. They're caged in there like animals. And, you know, if it was another sport like croquet or golf, you know, we wouldn't be having this argument about, oh, you know, can croquet players travel to the west of the island in order to play croquet? What happens if the croquet players start throwing croquet balls at my window and start smashing up the place? There aren't those kind of arguments that are being made, and I think we do have to bite the bullet and accept that skateboarding is a proper sport and needs a proper facility, and that skateboarders will travel to the proper facility in the island, wherever that might be. And when there are satellites, yeah, great. You know, let's see if we can get a satellite to look at Mars, shall we? But let's get on and build a skate park. And withdrawing this proposition, I don't think represents progress. I think it represents actually 2 steps back and only 1 step forward, sir.
Very much, Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I personally have only one thing in mind with regard to any aspect of this debate, and that is the importance of building a skate park, wherever that may be in the island. We need to give our island's young people something that they can be proud of, and a sense that the island embraces the sport of skating and other urban sports, and that we are proud of them. And who knows what can be built upon a good skate park in terms of tourism, in terms of competition. Who knows what level of skaters will come out of this, or BMX riders indeed. And so Jersey needs to move on and move forward, there's no question. But with regard to this particular debate, there's an inescapable reality, which means withdrawing this proposition is the better way forward. And that is regardless of any decision the states make, whether we say Lekennebay is our preferred site, whether we say South Hill, or indeed on top of Cyril Lamarck House is our preferred site. No matter what the states decide, any site then has to go through the planning process. And that planning process is very capable of turning down any site that the states put forward. And so regardless of our decision, the actual decision is always going to be made in the planning, through the planning process. And therefore, in my mind, it makes absolute sense to just go ahead, essentially hedging our bets by putting forward 2 applications for each site, and the planning process then, and the public consultation that is enabled via the planning process, will decide which, in terms of either or both, or indeed none of them may be able to go forward, depending on the results of that planning process. So people who are saying that we need to make this decision today, in terms of the state's decision, seem to be forgetting that no matter what decision we make, it can all be overturned through planning, and there's absolutely nothing any single one of us can do about that. So it does make complete logical sense to just go ahead, put both planning applications in, and see what the planning process has to say about it. We know there are problems with both sites from a planning perspective, and so we need that to be tested through planning, and the quicker we can get that in through planning, the better, because that is when we will finally, once that process has run its course, that is when we'll finally be able to start actually building the skate park, wherever that may be. So with that in mind, I think it makes sense to vote for the withdrawal of the proposition and get on with this planning process as quickly as possible. Thank you, sir.
Trinity.
Thank you, sir. I will be brief. I have to say that I am concerned about the suggestion of withdrawal. I think this puts the Assembly in a poor light in the eyes of the public. And I think we should at least move to determine the propositions and amendments which are before us today. How often do we see the Assembly trying to draw back when they don't like the decision of a planning committee and set themselves up as a committee of 49? I will be voting against withdrawing this proposition, although I will see to be contradicting myself if it does go forward to a vote, because in the main proposition I will obviously be
abstaining because I feel that there is a conflict, as this matter will end up at the planning committee. But I think the Assembly should give a steer to the committee which way they want to go with this. Thank you, sir.
Connetard, Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, members. Sir, I just wanted to speak in favour of the withdrawal and thank everybody for contributing. As somebody who spoke in the amendment debate yesterday, I outlined all the points I thought which was very pertinent to why it is important this Assembly highlights issues along the political process, because that's what led us to today. So in essence, really, sir, I believe everybody is right. Yes, we shouldn't have been here. There are many lessons to learn from it, and I hope everybody does take that on board. So I just want to briefly thank the members of the public who contacted me yesterday. There is a lot of public interest in this, and I think it's only fair that they are told and understood what this means. So, and I'm sure Senator Pallett will do that, and I thank everybody for contributing, and I hope this is the tone of going forward, that we can all work together, because regardless of wherever you sit, whatever you think, there's 49 of us, and surely we can do things better. Thank you, sir.
Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to be brief, but I just want to make my position clear. And that is, first of all, I would hope that Senator Pallett will consider his position to withdraw this. When it comes to the vote, I shall vote against withdrawal. And my reasoning is, as others have stated, states members have been elected to make decisions, and we should not be hiving it off to the planning committee or to the planning officers. We had a proposal from Senator Pallett on a scheme that had been well researched, had gone through the Council of Ministers, had been costed, all the work had been done, and then reversed at the very last moment. And I'm still concerned about the mechanisms that have caused that 180-degree turn in policy from the moment he left office to the amendment being brought forward. Now, that's a political thing, but I do believe that we should vote on his proposal, go ahead with it, take it to planning if we approve it, and at the same time, there is nothing to stop the minister putting forward proposals for another skate park on South Hill to planning, and let's see if all the hurdles that were identified yesterday, and again the sort of concerns I have about that site, are valid or not. Then the states can look at, as they've already said, there is no money available for both, and they're talking about in the 220 this year's budget proposals going forward, they would have to find additional funds. Well, at that stage, we will have perhaps one skate park in the pocket, in the sense that Le Kennebec may get through the planning process, but the states will have made a decision, and then later on in the year, we'll see whether South Hill would be suitable and whether funding can come forward, and we can support that later on in the year in the budget proposals. So I think the states would be abrogating its authority and its position. We should make the decision in the first instance, and if we're right and the Kennebec is a suitable site, let's say if that's the decision of the states, then we can go ahead with it after the planning decision. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak? Senator Farnham.
Very briefly, sir. Following on from Deputy Higgins, that is exactly what is proposed. And just to reiterate what I said this morning, what I put in writing to all states members, that we will actually exceed the requirement of Senator Pallett's proposition and the amendment, sir, by in addition submitting planning applications, and actually officers just haven't been sat down doing nothing for the last 6 weeks while Senator Pallett's proposition has been lodged, sir. They've been working up plans for Kennebec. The Kennebec application is practically ready to go, and that will be in by the 26th of February, sir, in line with the proposition. And as we said, and Deputy Morrell rightly pointed out, so to hedge Calbec, and with the aim of getting even more facilities for the skateboarding community, we're already begun work on an outline permission for South Hill. And in addition to that, we've committed to investing in good facilities for the east of the island, in further investment in St John and St Juan facility, and a commitment, sir, to delivering a further satellite facilities plan for St Helier over the next 2 years. So we've actually, in agreeing this today, far exceeded the outcome of the proposition and the amendments, which is good news for this, not just the skateboarding community, but for the whole island, I believe. So I suggest, sir, and it's disappointing that some members just choose to try to bash the government with these sort of things. We have a good, really good solution, and as Senator Pallett said, sir, let's get on with it. This is where the hard work begins, sir, and let's just get on with it, sir, and get these applications in. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak. Then I close the debate and call upon Senator Pallett to respond.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank members for their contributions, and I sense a great deal of frustration from my colleagues, and understandably so. I think members, the public, generally just want us to get on with this, and that is very much my feeling as well, is that we just need to get on with this and actually build something. So I understand the concerns about withdrawing the proposition, because I think people feel that potentially it gives the department, the minister, potential ways out of not actually achieving that. But let's go back prior to the election in 2018 and what happened during that election. I'm not saying every states member in the current assembly supported the building of a new skate park, but I think the vast majority did, and I think the vast majority were committed to providing something within this political term. And frankly, if we don't do that, I think a lot of us are going to find ourselves in electoral peril at the next election if we don't actually get some concrete in the ground and provide a skate park that users need and have been asking for. My biggest concern, which I think is a concern of other members who probably would prefer I didn't withdraw this, is around the funding. There is undoubtedly going to need this project to complete everything that is being promised here is going to need more funding. Have we any control over that? We do. In fact, we certainly do, because each year we can amend if a department or the government don't come up with the necessary funding to deliver these facilities. Any one of us can amend the government plan, and I will, without doubt, if I can't see the necessary funding in place, be looking to bring forward amendments to the next government plan to ensure that we can follow, I think, what we've promised to deliver in the debate yesterday and today, and what I've agreed with Senator Farnham is the right way forward. We'll soon know if people are going to keep their promises, because as Senator Farnham has just said, and I believe in it because I've seen some of the work, is that a planning application will be submitted by the end of this month for Le Canivet. He's right. I know work's progressed throughout the year on Le Canivet. My only concern was why it got derailed. But I know work has gone on in terms of providing that plan, or getting that planning application prepared. So by the next sitting, we should have a planning application in for Le Canivet, which if it isn't in, I think we've got the right to ask questions why it hasn't been. Deputy Sir Mary mentioned the users. He's absolutely quite right. This is not just about children. It is about providing a facility for islanders, for adults as well. But it is. We have to remember that again. One of our strategic commitments is around putting children first. And in a time when we have had so much doom and gloom with the pandemic, this should be a ray of light, a ray of sunlight, a bit of hope, so that people, when they're coming towards the summer and going into next winter, can actually look forward to be able to skate in a new facility and that we can all be proud of. The Constable of St Wands made some really interesting points, and again, I think he's right to mention the new North Quay and the role that Ports of Jersey have played. But the Ports of Jersey have been supportive of this process all the way through. They've provided funding, and they will provide funding for the new skate park. Knowing the new chief executive, I don't think there's any intention of closing the facility at the new North Quay until we have a new facility built. That's just not what I would expect of Ports. And again, Ports is a wholly owned subsidiary. It's owned by the states, and if we, there are ways to ensure that we can keep that skate park open. One of the things I think we are running the risk of here is damaging even further the trust between the states and the public. Debates like this don't happen, but sometimes we need to go through these debates to actually focus on some of the things that are important to people. And when we promise things, the public expect us to deliver on them. I have no doubt whatsoever, having worked with Senator Farnham through thick and thin, it's not always been, we've always had quite sometimes difficult discussions around various areas, and we haven't always agreed on everything, but we've remained friends, and we've kept the ability to be able to talk to each other and deal with issues and try to find a solution. What members have got every right to ask is why we couldn't have done that prior to the debate, and I apologise for that, and I'm sure Senator Farnham would as well, for not maybe working hard enough to provide a solution prior to this debate. Maybe we could have worked harder towards that, but we have found one that I think is workable. One thing this has done is put what is an integral part of community life in Jersey in the spotlight, and that is sports facilities that are not mainstream and appeal to a lot of young people that don't fit into other sports and want an outlet. And that outlet is not just about sport, it's about their well-being, about their public, about their mental health, about the ability to socialise, and about the ability to be with one another, something that they've not been able to do for the last few months at times. So please, I ask members, look, let's allow this to be withdrawn. I have been offered the chance to work with the department and to keep a close eye on how this project will move forward. And I will be vocal around anything that I feel is not beneficial to the skate park community, the public, or the integrity of states members moving forward. So I ask members if they will agree to withdraw this, so that we can actually get the first planning application in, and if that's passed, I will be expecting a spade to go in the ground within days. I think we are now we're running against the clock if we want to deliver something before the end of this political term, and also to again keep our promises to Ports, because they've been very patient in regards to us delivering this, so that they can get on with other plans that they have for that site. But all I ask members is, please, let's withdraw this. Let's move on. Let's be positive. Let's try to increase the trust with the public, and get behind delivering a skate park. Get behind the minister, the department, the officers, who I've got an awful lot of respect for and will always have respect for, and deliver a skate park. Thank you, sir.
Appel, please, sir.
Yes, indeed. Ask the greffier to place a vote into the voting link. A vote for permits the withdrawal of this proposition, and we then move to the next item of public business. A vote contra, and the debate will continue. I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted at 30 votes for, 13 votes contre, 1 abstention in the link, and 2 further votes for in the chat. Very well. The next item of public business is Life in Jersey, test and eligibility for election P2, lodged by Deputy Gardner, and I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
States are asked to decide whether of opinion A to request the Council of Ministers to develop a Life in Jersey test based on the existing Jersey aspect of the British citizenship test for introduction by October 2021. B, to request the Council of Ministers to establish an appropriate oath or affirmation for allegiance to the island of Jersey, including its cultures and traditions, by October 2021, with a view to persons taking the oath or affirmation before the Royal Court of Jersey in order to obtain a certificate in the Life in Jersey test. C, that a person who has successfully completed the Life in Jersey test and who has taken an oath or affirmation before the Royal Court in accordance with paragraph B should be eligible to stand for and be elected to the States, notwithstanding that they are not a British citizen, provided all of the necessary criteria under the relevant law, other than British citizenship, are met. And D, to request the Privileges and Procedures Committee to bring forward the changes to the States Jersey Law 2005, and in consultation with the Committee of the Connotab Jersey Law 2008, to give necessary effect to paragraph C of this proposition by the end of 2021.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Dear members, the eligibility criteria for states members has been the subject of more than one debate in the States. And in the last debate on the 22nd of September 2020, views were wide-ranged. As members are aware, immigration, citizenship, and identity are issues that I have personally worked through most of my adult life, and I think I have some expertise. I certainly have an immigration, integration, and citizenship experience in common with a significant part of our population that is not shared by a significant percentage of our assembly. I made the decision twice in my life to take citizenship. I also didn't have to take British citizenship. I could have remained a permanent resident in Jersey for the rest of my life. I didn't have any thoughts about political life then when I made my decision to become a British citizen. I came to the last debate on the eligibility to stand in our assembly with clear vision that probably members remembered during my speech. And I was pretty certain that if you wanted to be a part of the leadership of this island, you needed to have British citizenship. And this was my position when the debate was opened in September. I'm not sure if members remember that at the end I abstained as the debate changed my mind, and this is why the debates are important, because if we listen carefully, we might change our mind. And there were two specific reasons which were highlighted during the debate, which pushed me to abstain. First reason was we don't have a Jersey citizenship. We have British citizenship that doesn't connect really to Jersey identity. And secondly, we don't have a process where a person can become recognizing as Jersey even after 30, 40 years living here. So a child that was born in Jersey from a parent status will not automatically get the British citizenship, even though they born in Jersey. And this is where I felt that it's my responsibility to bring something forward, because it is important, and the vote was very close. My proposition gives an individual the opportunity to acquire eligibility status to stand for election as a state member by obtaining a life in Jersey certificate, the certificate in my proposition. And the certificate illustrates an individual's commitment to learning about the island rather than the United Kingdom. And certificate will have two parts. One is test, and second, ceremony in the royal court. And I will take you through my paragraph and through my journey that I have with myself when I was putting this proposition together. Anybody who would like to have British citizenship would need to pass life in Jersey. As a Jersey resident, you will have to do the supplementary test, life in Jersey. So there is life in the UK for British citizenship and life in Jersey supplement that any person who lives in Jersey would like to get British citizenship should do. I have done it when I submitted my request to become a British citizen. The test life in Jersey already exists. It's run by Highlands as part of the test life in the UK. So logistically, it is an established process which will need to be adjusted, obviously, if this proposition will be adopted. The rationale of doing the test as follows, and this is where, again, I'm coming from my personal experience, and I hope members will try to connect to their own. Having to study to get the knowledge in the Jewish religious text, the Talmud, it states the following: study leads to action. I reflect on these words as I remember members that Israeli Jewish population is overwhelmingly an immigrant population that arrived after Second World War. Israel struggled to create unified national identity that blended the East with West, Arab tradition with European. But unified identity is created nevertheless. This is because after Second Temple was destroyed for 2,000 years, Jewish leaders needed to find innovative solution to keep the nation together. And learning was the route they chose. The solution was completely innovative at that time. And the product is created is religious text, Talmud, that I have quoted perhaps the first time in the history of in Jersey Assembly. The new cultural identity of Israel was established in light of this need for innovation, including old ancient traditions and inclusivity of all cultures that Jews from all countries brought to Israel. Our identity, any country identity, is the story that we tell ourselves about who we are, and without knowledge, we cannot tell ourselves who we are. So the test is to prove person that has enough knowledge of Jersey to be able to tell themselves the story of who they are. It is not perfect, but we have to start from somewhere. We need to establish a new way of getting Jersey identity, as 50% of our population is not Jersey born. Another life experience that I'm bringing. In 1990s, I personally witnessed how 15 countries of the former Soviet Union created national identities which were repressed during the communist time. Now they are very strong. 30 years later, we all know the national differences between Latvia, Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. All 50 national identities were reinvented and embraced by the population, and it's done through education and ceremonies. So now we're going to the paragraph B of my proposition, the need of ceremonies. Ceremony hold an extremely important place in our life. They mark life essential moments. They reflect our beliefs, hopes, tradition, culture, and spirituality. A ceremony can help to show people they are united and that they belong. Then can motivate us, stimulate our emotions, and mark significant moments in our life. The positive effects of a ceremony are universal across civilization and are not specific to age or gender. For me, it's also part of wider question about Jersey identity. The identity of being an immigrant and a local, both identities need to come together. It's how we control our updated Jersey collective and shared identity, how we manage our 21st century vision of inclusive identity shared by majority of our population. We are in danger of having a significant part of our population who feel they are not part of Jersey, who do not consider themselves to be citizens and therefore have no need to contribute towards our long-term future. So the question is not, are you Jersey? The question is, what kind of Jersey person are you? I know lots of work going into the Island Identity Policy Development Board led by Deputy of Greville, and I'm welcoming this work. Very important to have a vision, and I'm certain once the report will be published, it will bring clarity and actions. And it can be and this test and ceremony and this process can be included, or even the new vision that will be published by the board will take over this proposition. Currently, we all know that we need more representative from our minorities, so the assembly looks like a random sample of the genders and ethnicities of our island. The island population is different, and I was disappointed that Council of Ministers did not support this practical movement, which can use as a pilot project. And maybe it was to consider paragraph separately to start with tests and ceremony that can be used for various properties in creating a island identity. But my vision and my will today, and I hope Assembly will support, that this proposition, I'm aiming to find a way of opening the door to the Assembly to our population that were not born here, don't have British citizenship, and made Jersey their home. I'm grateful for PPC Comments who saw this proposition as one of the possible solutions to the problem of our minorities disengaged with politics. In summary, the certificate and ceremony will provide a simple, straightforward route for the individual to show willingness to understand the island identity and affirmation and confirmation of their alliance and support for Jersey. And I move my proposition, so.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Pershall.
Thank you, sir. This proposition provides a mechanism for any non-British resident of Jersey to be allowed to access the election as a candidate. To my mind, one of the many compelling arguments in favour of this proposal is that it is penned by a member who truly represents the people and the communities that the Life in Jersey certificate is designed to help. Deputy Ina Gardner, born in Kazakhstan, a British Israeli citizen, first trained as a social worker to help Israel's divided community, has spent 20 years working with businesses and educational institutions to improve team dynamics, and has worked pro bono for Global Action on Poverty. This is someone who has put identity, community, and belonging at the centre of their working life. Her election campaign had community at its heart, and her subsequent work in the States has consistently shown the authenticity of her campaign commitments to nurture a more inclusive society. Furthermore, you only have to look at the journey the Deputy has taken herself to appreciate that this proposition has been born out of her own belief that, in addition to supporting those from different backgrounds, those people from other places also need to take action to embrace the community they have chosen to join. A belief that she has embodied through her own actions as an Israeli citizen who has made Jersey her home. And aren't we pleased that she did? Upon moving to Jersey, Deputy Gardner qualified as a Jersey Bronze Badge tourist guide to, in her own words, find out more about the history and heritage of our beautiful island. She has dual nationality because she believes in the concept of demonstrating a commitment to the people of and places where she lives. However, as the Deputy has pointed out in her report, for those whose country of origin does not allow dual citizenship, the Life in Jersey certificate will confer a right that is currently denied to them. It will also place a responsibility on them, which will in turn allow them to participate fully in our democratic system in Jersey by being allowed to run for election. Had the Deputy not been able to access dual citizenship, it is possible she may not have given up her Israeli nationality to become a British national and therefore stand for election in Jersey. We are so lucky that for this Deputy, the option for duality existed, as I am certain that the states of Jersey and the island community would be worse off without her in the Assembly. For those non-British residents for whom duality is not an option, we have to find a solution. How many Deputy Gardeners are we missing out on just because it so happens their country of origin will not allow dual citizenship? Is it fair to ask that such individuals give up the nationality of their place of birth in order to go through a naturalising process that contains only one supplementary section that is relevant to the island's identity? It's my view that for these non-British citizens, a Life in Jersey certificate would be more relevant, more educational, more informative, and show a greater commitment to the island than this naturalisation process. The Life in Jersey certificate provides equal access to anyone wishing to retain their nationality whilst demonstrating their commitment to Jersey and whilst being able to serve the island as we all do in this Assembly. This is not about Jerseyfying non-British nationals. This is about inclusion and about community. This is about balancing rights with responsibilities when making a place a home. This is about giving everyone an insight into the island that is their home and an entry point into politics, irrespective of the nationality in their passport. Let's not lose sight of the intent and of the outcome of this proposal. We all know what it is to wish to serve. Let us no longer deny this possibility for those in the community who rightly may choose to retain their original nationality over becoming British, but who share a true desire to serve our community in this beautiful place that has become their home. For anyone from anywhere who makes Jersey their home, moving here is part of their story, and they become part of ours. In a world that is increasingly divided, let us bring our stories together to create a Jersey identity that isn't represented solely by people like me. Jersey born, Jersey name, 800 years of Jersey family. Of course, for me, that history is an important part of my story. But my story today and my story of the future is not this. My story today and my story of the future, I hope, will be enriched by a more inclusive community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah. This proposition actually goes very deep for me, It's about fundamental principles, and it's also about my conscience. And I find it's actually quite a very difficult decision to make as to how to go forward, because when push comes to shove, however you look at this proposition, it is fundamentally discriminatory. It will produce two groups of immigrants. First group, like me, who are British born and have allegiance to Britain, which is not relevant to Jersey, and those who aren't British, don't have a British connection, and have to do this test. Now, the test may well be not an enormous one. It didn't cost you, it only cost you £2,000 to get your British citizenship. You'll get a Jersey test. But nonetheless, it's still discriminatory. And as a fundamental principle, I find it very difficult to vote for something, even though it's only mildly discriminatory. Doesn't sit comfortably at all, because in principle it's wrong. But I balance that with the lessons learned from the previous deputy of St Martin, who used to say it's one of those positions, one of those propositions where you have to hold your nose if you're going to vote for it. So the question for me is, it's discrimination. It will produce two distinct groups of immigrants, one of which is over another. Whoa, what's that? So somebody's got a microphone somewhere. Or it's less discriminatory than what we've had in the past and currently do have. So therefore, it's only mildly discriminatory. I can hold my nose and vote for it because it will enable some people from minority groups to stand, whereas previously they couldn't afford to stand. So that fundamental dichotomy I still find difficult. And I don't quite know which way I'm going to go on this. That decision, I think, everybody has to make today, whether to vote for something that's discriminatory and actually disadvantages some groups on the island, or to give a greater opportunity to minority groups to stand for the state. I don't know how I'm going to vote, but that's the question that I have in front of me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. These debates are normally not necessarily as interesting, and I'll tell you why this is an interesting proposition for me. It's because sometimes when you get up to speak, or as I am now, sitting down at my my dining room table on my own, you think, oh, it doesn't actually matter what I'm going to say because it's not going to change anybody's opinion. But I've got an unusual situation today by being able to perhaps change or help my good and esteemed colleague Deputy Southern come down on one side of the fence or the other, because I do share and have been on a similar journey to him. I have, however, come out on one side firmly on this debate, and I have full respect for Deputy Southern. He's taught me so much over the years, and I think the reason I've come so far firmly on this particular decision is because I've implemented, I think, some of the shared values that we have and some of the core values that he has helped nurture in me. And that is one of fundamentally of anti-discrimination. Now, there are several points I want to make, and I apologise if this is slightly disjointed, but I will be primarily speaking to Deputy Southern, but anyone else is of course allowed to be influenced by my words if they choose to. And first of all, I'll start with Deputy Pershard. I do find it really difficult with Deputy Pershard when she says that she wants to overcome the division and make it easier for non-British nationals in Jersey to stand for election, because she had that opportunity only a few months ago. And personally, I will always find it very difficult to reconcile what I had hoped from Deputy Pershard with those core values she purports to have with the way she voted in that particular vote, especially after she told me that she was going to support it, because it lost by 1 vote, sir. And if she had voted the other way, we wouldn't need this debate today. We would have a situation where non-British nationals, albeit with Senator Gorst's caveats that he put in, could stand for election. They wouldn't need to go through this rigmarole of a test that has been set up by Jersey politicians for other potential candidates to meet before they can even become candidates, let alone get elected. And the point is, we already have a test in place. It's called an election. And the only test we need is to say, if somebody wants to be a states member, politician, and serve their island in that way, in their community, it's called getting elected. You put your name forward, and if you get enough votes and beat the other candidates, then you pass the test. And that's because we elect people on merit. We don't put false obstacles in the way and say, well, you know, my personal opinion is that you should have had to pass a contrived Jersey test that we've made up and that I've asked the Council of Ministers to go away and approve based on the Jersey-fied part of the British nationality test, which I've looked through. And I don't deny that it's not useful to go through that process. I was interested to hear that Deputy Gardner previously did the bronze badge course, and it's something I'd encourage members to do. I've done it. I found it very interesting, and I've read through the notes there, and it's good. It's the received history of Jersey. It even talks about the fact that in the past, you know, in the islands, we weren't all royalists, because that's a myth that often gets passed down. It says that many Jersey were parliamentarian sympathisers, and that was perhaps sometimes for ideological reasons or simply because they didn't like the ruling Carteret family of the day, who were also privateers. There's no mention of the slave trade in there. There's no mention of the fact that George Carteret was a slave trader. And how would you feel if you were a black islander living in Jersey, perhaps with some British heritage at some point, or perhaps not, and you moved to Jersey and you realise that actually you've got a cleansed version of Jersey history which only selects certain parts that we want you to hear. And it's this idea that we're going to set up a test for other people to meet. Now, what if my test is different? What if I say, actually, I think there should be a numeracy test? Because in order to be a states member, you're going to be dealing with budget decisions, and we can't have people who don't have basic numeracy skills being states members. Let's add that to the list. Let's say that as well as doing a Jersey citizenship test, you have to do a GCSE in maths, or you have to do an A-level, or you have to show some basic arithmetic. And what about a literacy test? So we want to make sure that everybody who becomes a states member has got perfect diction and that they've got perfect literacy skills. And anyone with bad grammar or anybody who is perhaps dyslexic should be barred from being a states member. And I would say to Deputy Southern that it's the thin end of the wedge, that fascism doesn't happen overnight. And that I know it's being sold in such a way that says, look, this is better than what we've got now, isn't it? And I say, well, no, the way to do it properly, if you want to have a proper anti-discriminatory system, you'd simply decide whether or not we allow non-British people to stand for election. If we don't want non-British people to stand for election, and we genuinely believe in our hearts that you should be a British citizen to stand for election, that's fine. We don't put other tests in the way. But if you actually think that anybody should be able to stand for election if they can cut the mustard and convince a very discriminating electorate, I'm not talking about necessarily racially discriminating, I'm talking about discriminating because, you know, the public can't be treated as fools, then that's the other way to go. We don't put these false tests and these false dichotomies in the way. And I think this is the problem here. As I said to colleagues earlier today, is that it's both superficially appealing and superficially abhorrent. And that's why we have these internal conflicts. And frankly, I don't have a big enough clothes peg, or I've run out of clothes pegs to put on my nose to hold whilst voting for something which is completely flawed. There's also this idea of submission that I've seen in Jersey, whereby people, you've got two categories of people. You say you're either from Jersey or you're not. And then even within that, you've got subcategories saying, oh, well, you haven't been here enough generations. You know, your grandparents only moved over, 50 years ago, or you can only go back 4 generations on one side. But I'm a true Jerseyman because I can trace my family records back to King John. It's all complete nonsense, of course, because that doesn't tell you whether you're a good or a bad person, or whether or not you can make the right decisions, or whether you have something to give. And the idea that we're going to put a test out there, a Jersey test that we've designed for people who have been living in Jersey perhaps 20, 30, 40 years, what kind of message does that say to them? I mean, somebody who's lived in Jersey for 45 years is more Jersey than I am. Yeah, I will never have to take this test in order to stand for election. But somebody who knows more about Jersey than I might has to go through this submissive process. And we see those levels of discrimination in the island where people have lived here for 10 years and they think, oh, actually, you know, I've done my time now and I'm not really a Jersey person, but I feel privileged that they've allowed me to live here and I've been paying rent for 10 years. Or I can't buy my own house anymore because any chance I had of saving up for a deposit has gone well out the window. But as long as I go through this ceremony and submit myself humbly to the Royal Court, then they can give me a certificate which says that I can stand for election, which of course is the zenith of my aspiration, because there can't be anything better than standing for election in Jersey. I mean, look at ourselves talking about this. We think that this is the zenith because that's what people out there who are non-British aspire to do. I think we should just make a decision one way or the other. Should you be British, yes or no? If you should be British, that's fine. Then you can stand for election if you meet the criteria. Otherwise, let's just make a decision which is non-discriminatory and say stand for election if you want to. I do appeal to my colleagues at Reform and don't be taken in by any of this nonsense. Let's do this properly and let's fight this so that anyone who's been here the requisite length of time can stand for election, make the case. They don't need to pass this nonsense test which has been devised and which is discriminatory and which will not tick all the boxes. Even if it does mean that a few people who submit themselves to the process will be able to stand for election, I think that's not the way to do it. Let's do this properly or not do it at all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. I thank Deputy Gardiner for lodging this proposition because I recall previous debates that we've had around the British citizenship requirement for standing for election in Jersey, and they were quite heated debates, as I think any debate it would be when we're talking about people's identity and things that are important to us as individuals. So I do understand that there are strong feelings on both sides here. And at the time, I supported removing the requirement to be a British citizen. And I did so even though I do see both sides of the arguments. And my identity as both a British and an Irish citizen, that's very important to me. And I do see the arguments. I do understand the arguments that have been put forward, some of the arguments in the comments from the Council of Ministers about the importance of British citizenship and our allegiance to the Crown. But I see that the other side of the argument is perhaps a far more weighty one. And I want to draw members' attention to some of the data around this area. And this was published in the comments from PPC, which the Diversity Forum, as one of the subcommittees of PPC, contributed to those comments. And during our discussions, which I have to, for clarity, they were not unanimously approved by the Assembly. There were some detractors, given the perhaps difficult nature of this debate, but a majority of the Diversity Forum did approve the comments. But so we looked at some data, which was drawn out by the state's Graph in a Comres survey, I think in 2018. And in that survey, it found that 64% of people born in Jersey who were surveyed said that they were very or fairly interested in politics in the island, compared to 75% for people born elsewhere in the British Isles, which surprises me, 67% for people born in Poland, 58% for people born in Portugal or Madeira, and 60% for people born elsewhere in Europe. So it looks like from those figures that there is a consistently high level of interest in Jersey politics, irrespective of where people come from. But the data, in fact, shows that there is an enormous disparity in terms of who actually engages with our political system and goes out to vote. So the percentage of people who recalled voting in the 2018 election by place of birth, so Jersey, 57% reported that they voted in the 2018 election, and the rest of the British Isles, 63%. And then it starts falling, sir. Poland, 58% of respondents reported that they voted. Portugal and Madeira, 37%. And the rest of Europe, 17%. So although percentage of people voting is just one measure of engagement in our political system, I think those figures are quite telling. And if we're looking for another measure of who perhaps engages at a different level in terms of standing for election and participating in our parliament, we don't have much representation in terms of different ethnicities and nationalities. And Deputy Gardiner herself is one of the people that provides some diversity, and I think we should listen to her today, because I know I hear what's being said by previous speakers. This is not an ideal solution, and this wouldn't be my favoured solution, but I think it is possibly the best solution that we are going to reach in this assembly. And sometimes we do have to compromise, because it's clear, sir, that we have debated this, I think, twice. We've debated not this, sir, the British citizenship requirement being removed, and this assembly has not accepted that requirement being removed. That's not something that has been approved by this assembly. So this, sir, that has been presented by Deputy Gardiner, I think is a middle way, and that's often something that Deputy Gardiner brings, and which I'm really grateful for her presence in the Assembly, because I think she does bring a great deal of balance and often finds a compromise and a way forward. So even for those who do not think this is an ideal solution, and I myself am one of them, I am going to vote for this. And the reason is because the outcome of this will be hugely positive. I think if we can implement this, it will have the effect of, rather than this huge barrier for a person to overcome. So maybe we can actually put ourselves in the shoes of a person who is, one of those statistics that I've just quoted, perhaps somebody who is in the 58% of people born in Portugal or Madeira who are very interested in local politics, but as we can see, only 37% of those people voted. So maybe somebody who is in that group who is interested in politics, but hasn't been engaged in politics, and perhaps they start to become engaged. You know, they see an issue that they're passionate about and they campaign on that issue. They might do some work on a community group, perhaps in the parish, and they start to become involved in the life of their community and they start contributing to their community. And the natural next step for that person might be to serve their community by standing for election and attempting to serve in the Parliament. But at that point, that person who was maybe born in Madeira and came to Jersey as a child, and may have every other feature the same as me. They might be a similar age to me, they might be the same gender as me, they might have the same level of education, and the only difference might be the place that they were born. They at that point have this huge barrier, which I won't go into because I think we've all heard those points made about the huge cost of obtaining British citizenship. Now, at that point, that person has that huge barrier. If we approve this proposition today, there will still be a small hurdle for that person to jump over, but it's a lot more achievable. And at that point, at that decision point, which we've all been through, haven't we, of feeling passionate about helping our community and wanting to give something back and to serve our community and stand for election, there is a decision point at which you weigh up whether you should take that step. And clearly, I mean, I don't think British citizenship requirements are the only barrier. I think there are many barriers, but clearly there are barriers there that are stopping people who were born elsewhere but are very much part of Jersey life, stopping them from participating. And personally, sir, I would much rather, if I was in that person's shoes, I would much rather take a test which was a lower cost, more accessible, where I could demonstrate my commitment to Jersey, rather than paying hundreds of pounds and going through the similar tests and more to obtain a British citizenship. I think as a result of approving this proposition, it will perhaps not completely remove the barriers, but it will reduce the barriers. And that can only make our Parliament better, sir. So I am going to support this proposition because I think it will reduce barriers that competent people who we need in the States Assembly are currently facing to standing for election. And we do need them. So I hope that even members who think this isn't a perfect solution can vote to support this today. And it doesn't mean that we can't look again at the British citizenship requirements, but let's do this today so that in time for the next election we can open up our Parliament and make it more accessible and more inclusive, and ultimately improve our democracy. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy Martin.
Thank you, sir. And I don't think this is an imperfect solution. I think it's an absolute terrible solution. I absolutely had lots more to say and agreed with everything Deputy Tadea said. I voted, and it's for Deputy Dublay's information, in my time in the Assembly, I think it's come back, this has come around not being a non-British to stand for the Assembly, not taking a British citizen test, allowing non-British subjects to stand for the Assembly. I think once I voted against, once I voted for. The last couple of times I voted for, and if it comes back again, I'll vote for. When I saw this lodge, sir, a test for what? So Deputy Gardner herself, absolutely great in the Assembly. Deputy Gardner didn't take British citizenship so she could become a politician. It was where she decided she wanted to be, and that's what I want people to do. If they want to become British, by all means, absolutely hats off to them, sir. But if they don't, they have exactly what Deputy Dublay has just described, you know, commitment to our community, been here for many, many years. And you say to them, oh, you'd make a very good states member. Oh no, you can't. And then we invent this. I want to talk about the timetable, sir. It's absolutely you know, let's forget everything else that we've got to do for legislation and everything. Just make sure we get this in. We can ask people to take a test and that's all okay, and then they can stand in the elections in 22. I'm very, very concerned again. Things keep coming forward with hardly any financial or manpower at the bottom of them. But really, really, this is not, I can proudly say, sir, and people who might think this is a compromise, but didn't want people who weren't British citizens to stand. Oh, well, you know, we've now got a Jersey test. It doesn't travel anywhere, by the way. Not like British citizens. Well, you American, whatever, you become a citizen. You've done a Jersey test. It doesn't go anywhere, sir. Absolute. As I agree with Deputy Taddia, supported him last time. We don't agree as much as we used to on things, but on this we are one. And don't let this be a cop-out, sir. Please don't vote for this. Bring it back, Deputy Taddia. You were one vote out. You've probably changed Deputy Pershard's mind now. Probably wishes she had voted with you. But you'll change more people's mind as we go on. So, sir, please, I ask people, don't. It is an absolute cop-out. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. I would be interested if the proposer would identify any country which allows non-natives resident to become members of the national government. You know, we need to examine the legislation. I understand that you have to acknowledge, you know, your primary identity and nationality, and very often have a vote in one nationality only. I know my sister, when living in France, could only vote in national elections if she takes up citizenship. And you've got similar rules in the USA. You know, I'm told that you must demonstrate your commitment to the island, which results from taking up British citizenship. Perhaps the proposer can clarify the legal position for such a suggestion, and if she has not consulted the Attorney General about this, could he please comment? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And when I start, I'd just like to start by saying thank you to both Deputy Gardner and Deputy Pershard for two absolutely superb speeches. Quality of which, to be honest, in my almost 3 years in the States, I haven't heard speeches of such high quality and compassion and learning. There's not often that we learn from speeches in the States of Jersey, but certainly Deputy Gardner's had plenty of lessons, just general knowledge lessons that will help us all. But I think it's worth speaking about some of the problems that have been identified by some of the previous speakers. One which stood out was Deputy Taddia talking about and Deputy Southern talking about discrimination, and I thought Deputy Southern was very honest and you know, when telling us how he was struggling to know which way to go, and I understand his issue with discrimination there, but I found it curious that Deputy Taddia, who referred to the vote, or that he lost by 1 vote with regard to his amended proposition as amended by Senator Gorst, which was an incredibly discriminatory amendment. And so I find it curious that Deputy Taddia should be promoting that as a non-discriminatory way forward, because I remember saying at the time, Deputy Senator Gorst's amendment would have allowed someone from Pakistan, because that's a member of the Commonwealth, to stand in the States, whilst not allowing someone from Iceland to stand in the States. And so there, straight away, you had discrimination taking place. So there is no world in which that amendment was non-discriminatory. and the I do believe that unamended, the proposition brought by Deputy Tadier stood no chance of getting through. I definitely want to speak in support of this proposition. I think it addresses a number of issues, and it is a middle way. I think, first of all, and in many ways I'm speaking to Deputy Southern here, is it's difficult sometimes to accept that in order to achieve our principles, or what we see as our principled way forward, you have to sometimes take a smaller step, which means you don't immediately reach the principle you're aiming for, but it is a step closer. And in that respect, I think this proposition speaks to that. Yes, there is an element, as Deputy Southern was saying, a kind of lesser discrimination, but the word lesser is the important part there. The current rule we have about British citizenship is discriminatory to anybody who either A, doesn't wish to take British citizenship for their own personal reasons, or B, is unable to take British citizenship without relinquishing their existing citizenship, because there are countries in this world which don't allow dual citizenship. And that's a huge thing to ask. I mean, if someone born in Jersey is a British citizen and then happens to end up living in another country, if they wanted to take part in that country's political process, but were told the only way you can do that is by gaining the new country citizenship at the expense of your British citizenship, we can all imagine that that would be something we would have to think long and hard about, because it'd be very difficult to regain the citizenship that you've lost. And we're in a situation at the moment where we are asking people to make that decision. And whereas Deputy Gardner's proposition is definitely a way forward, which means that islanders who aren't British citizens would be able to stand for the state. And from that perspective, I think it's very practical. I think, and a practical way forward, I think as well, and people won't be surprised by this from my perspective, is, and again, I referred to it in that original debate a year or so ago, is I believe, just going off memory, I said something along the lines of, ideally, we would not expect people to be British citizens. We would expect people to take a Jersey citizenship, but as Jersey is not a sovereign nation, that's not a possibility. And what Deputy Gardner has come up with is quite an ingenious way around that problem of Jersey not being a sovereign nation. But on top of the kind of ingenious way around that problem, there is also that sense of this proposition allows us to start to build the story that is Jersey. And I think we have to remember and have to look at the fact that since the 1990s, early 1990s, when we had a population of about 80,000, our population has grown by probably about 40% since then. And obviously most of those people who have come to Jersey, who have moved here in the last 30 years are from Britain and British citizens, but there are plenty who are not from Britain, not British citizens. And they're coming to an island that has undergone enormous change in 30 years and is, in my view, losing sight of its own story. We have heard many times in this chamber people talking about how we're losing our sense of identity in Jersey. We're being run like a UK council. The UK just wants to make us the same as the UK. Well, this proposition before us helps us move against that momentum and that force. It helps us again begin to re-establish a Jersey story and an understanding of Jersey's heritage and where Jersey has been. Jersey's history is hundreds of thousands of years old. Jersey's history is more than, farming families. It's so much more than this, yet we know so little about it, both as people from Jersey and even less in general people who are new to Jersey. And it is time that we start being proud and confident in our identity as an island and understanding the story that we have that has brought us here today. It is not a UK story. It is not a story of the kings and queens of England. It is a story unique to Jersey. And I think this proposition highlights that and puts that story front and centre. And it's one that I really hope that Assembly members can understand and can see as a positive. If Jersey is to move forward as an autonomous state, rather than just a carbon copy of parts of the UK, which is where I fear we're headed if we don't start to take pride in our own island's history and our own story. I note Deputy Labby, Deputy of Grouville is asking to speak as well after me, and I have no idea what she's going to say. But I do know that her work on the island identity, I believe, speaks to exactly that sense of pride and understanding of Jersey's history and the story that has brought us to where we are. I think, as Deputy Pershar said, that the fact that this proposition has been brought by Deputy Gardner, someone who has chosen Jersey for her home, and has done more than that, she has chosen to immerse herself in Jersey and help shape its future, but based on an understanding partly of its past. And for that, I can only commend Deputy Gardner. And I hope that States members really do take this opportunity to, number one, remove or minimise the discrimination that is existing in our current laws with regard to being able to be eligible for States membership. But also, and in so doing, helping to diversify eligibility for States membership, as Deputy Doublé so rightly said. But also take this opportunity to help just put a marker down and just say, we are proud of Jersey and we are proud of its unique story, and we are writing history every day, but that history is based on the story and the history that has gone before us. And we want to embrace that. We want people who are new to this island to learn about that, to understand it, and then be in an even stronger position to help shape our island's future and help write the new pages of the story which is yet to come. So I'll be supporting this very proudly, sir, and I'm delighted that Deputy Gardner has brought this proposition. And I hope other States members will do as well, whether it is because it is a middle way, or whether it is because they want to see Jersey and all islanders having a greater understanding of Jersey and being proud of Jersey, or whether it is a mixture of both. I think this has a great deal of merit about it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy of Grouville.
Thank you, sir. I think the sentiment behind this proposition is very earnest, and it's very important in encouraging people who live, work and choose to make the island their home to feel included and give a sense of belonging in this community. And I think that is to be applauded. Probably one of the greatest barriers is education and knowledge, not only of our young, but anyone who makes Jersey their home. There has been some work that has been undertaken over many years in this area, mainly thanks to the GREF and the Deputy Greffier, who has conducted tours and teaching in our States Assembly for school years 5 and 6, and who has organised the CPA Youth Assembly for about 20 years now. But there is so much more to be done. And as Deputy Gardner knows, this is something that has been recognised and recommended in the draft Island Identity Report, that far more effort has to be put into educating our young, front-facing staff, people who represent the island overseas, workers in finance, sports people, and indeed anyone who holds a Jersey Social Security card. And in that, I mean, you know, Jersey people who have been born and raised in the island. I think we could all do with taking this test that's being recommended. I think it'd be good for everybody. So I think that surely would make a good start to help everyone feel included and to celebrate being a Jersey citizen, make it mean something, and a lot more can be done in this area. So I totally agree with Deputy Gardner so far. Nationality, however, is different. It is different to being a resident or a citizen, and it is layered with complexity. Jersey is a jurisdiction, Jersey as a jurisdiction is complex. We fit all of these descriptions. We're dependent, some authority, but still part of a parent country. We're a crown dependency, and we're not quite the sovereign state. Language is very important. How we refer to ourselves as a small nation is important. Legally speaking, being naturalised in Jersey means becoming a British citizen, and yet many Jersey residents are not British nationals. EU nationals, for example, may still hold a passport of their own origin nations, despite having lived in Jersey for many years. Deputy Gardner seems to be amalgamating the two for the purpose of standing for election. We do not stop anyone applying for British nationality, and I was one of the dissenters that Deputy Doublé referred to on the Diversity Forum, because I felt we are not putting the barriers up. We do not stop anybody applying for British nationality. We do not make anyone give up their own nationality. They can apply for dual nationality. But what we are not here to do is to make up for the shortcomings in jurisdictions who put up their own barriers. Standing for our state's assembly is standing in national elections, not municipal elections, and therefore there needs to be a nationality by those standing, and in common with virtually every other country. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy, does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition. Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. I have to say, so rarely have I felt so personally under threat as during Deputy Tadier's speech when he suggested bringing in a maths test. I got distinctly worried at that stage. Fortunately, we're not debating that topic. So you could be forgiven for thinking that this is merely a watered down version of Reform's earlier proposition, that you shouldn't have to hold a British passport to sit in the States or to be a British citizen. To put it in a sort of soft drink parlance, citizenship light. But it actually embodies an important change of perception. Under the Reform proposition, it was very much come one, come all. We're all citizens of the world. It really doesn't matter what you know or feel about the island. Everyone is welcome to stand. This brings with it a reality, sir, that yes, it does matter that you feel an identity with the island. And in order to prove it, you must do this test. Now, that's an interesting one, sir, because what this one is saying is that you do think there's something wrong with the system. So it would be a bit like if you had a male-only club, only men can join, and you decide that's wrong. Actually, we should allow women to join, but we vote that down. We vote that women can't join. Then we come back with something. Well, women can join as long as they pass this test. So even if you think you shouldn't have to be a British citizen, surely this isn't the way to go about it, sir. But as I say, this is a big change, and with it, the question still remains, why would you not make the step to become a British citizen? if you wish to represent the island and its people. I know we are Jersey, but as an island people, we have also been considered British for centuries. And so this is about commitment. It's 100% about commitment, because once people have made that commitment, they will be tasked with deciding on the laws and the policies for the island and its future. Housing, airports, roads, harbours, hospitals, immigration policies, and dare I say it's skate parks. Why would you wish to run an island, a country, or even a golf club, sir, if you're not a member of that body, if you're not an integral part of that body? If you wish to use the library, sir, you become a member. You don't merely go in and take over the library and say, I'm going to take these books. You've got to become a member, because it's all about commitment. Let's look at another form of commitment. So let's look about marriage. And I know marriage is now outdated and people may not wish to make that commitment. And if they don't wish to make that commitment, they could take the reform option, if we're looking at it from this context, and not get married. Live together, make no commitment, and just carry on as normal. But if you do make that commitment, I was looking at the wedding vows, and it's many years since I took mine, but it goes something like this. I take thee to be my wedded wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death us do part. Pretty strong stuff, sir. Pretty solid intent there of a commitment to that person that you are intending to commit yourself, spend the rest of your life to. How would that then sound, sir, if you put, I take thee, and this is the new test, if we put it in the New Jersey citizenship test, wedding vows. I take thee to be my wedded wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for richer, in health, to tolerate and put up with till I decide otherwise. Because there isn't the commitment there, is it, sir? There's a vow of sorts, but there isn't that 100% heartfelt commitment. And that is surely what you have to look for if you are going to sit in this assembly and try, often fail, but try to make the correct decisions and steer the island on the correct path. So in closing, I always remember there was a Scottish friend of mine when I was at university at Glasgow, and anybody familiar with Glasgow will know that there's a famous football match called the Old Firm game, so between Celtic and Rangers. But if anyone ever has a chance to go and watch it, I would advise them to do so. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's like a sporting version of a war, and it really is quite shocking. But I asked this chap on the morning of a game, I said, what about the people who are neutral in all this, who don't care about Celtic or Rangers? You know, how do you view them? He looked at me rather puzzled, and then he said, you're either with us or you're against us. And I think that is the same here, sir. You either want to fully commit to the island or you don't. Thank you.
Very much, Deputy. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I think the question we need to ask is, what is the problem that the Deputy is trying to address? Is it who can stand for the State Assembly, or is it trying to address the low interest some island residents have in politics or in voting in elections? Now, the table that was provided in the comments paper shows that 57% of Jersey people who are born in Jersey vote in the election, 63% from the rest of the British Isles. Our Polish community, 58% voted, 37% from Portugal and Madeira, and the rest of Europe, 17%. Now, I'd like to know, what is the direct evidence to show, for example, that people are not voting or interested in politics because no one from their country of birth
is a member of the States. I'm not aware of any such evidence, and I don't believe there is any. Most people are not interested in politics, either because they're too busy trying to provide for their families, perhaps working every hour possible to earn enough money to meet their needs. Many people don't vote because they think their votes don't count, that whoever is elected is going to do whatever they want and not really listen to their concerns. We have a problem with election turnout in St Helier. Why? I know that many of the people who are here are living in, well, certainly in central St Helier, in bedsits or very small cramped accommodation. They think that the states don't listen. I don't believe that the problem of voter turnout or of interest in politics is down to whether a person is of British nationality or any other nationality. There's no proof that this is the reason for their not taking an interest or voting. Now, I'm British and I'm proud of the fact. I make no bones about that. I look around the world and think that, yes, despite our faults, I'm proud of what we actually do in Britain and the values that we uphold. Equally, I've been a resident of Jersey and lived in Jersey for 43 years. I consider it my home. I like much of what's here in Jersey. That's the reason I stayed. Why my family was brought up here. We have our faults, and yes, as a member of the States, I'm highly critical of many of the things that our government does or doesn't do, and so on. That doesn't mean to say that I'm not proud of being an island resident or that I'm not proud of being British. Now, I think that where this proposition falls down is we need to look at, again, what goes on elsewhere. We've said we're discriminating because those who aren't British can't become a member of the States. And Senator Ferguson raised this as well. Can any member tell me of any other country that allows non-citizens to stand for election to the national parliaments? Does, for example, Israel? For example, we have the problem with the West Bank Arabs, the ones who were displaced after the various wars in 1948 and 1967. Can they vote in Israeli elections? I don't think so. For example, Poland, do they allow non-citizens to stand for election? I don't believe that is the case. Or Portugal or Madeira. I have no problem in saying that. Oh, and I would also ask the question too, do they allow lower standards rather than citizenship to allow people to stand in their national assemblies? I don't think so. I may be proved wrong. If countries do allow, say, for example, British citizens or Jerseymen to stand in their elections, then I have no problem with giving reciprocal arrangements for their citizens to do so in our elections. So I think what it comes down to is what are we trying to achieve? What's the evidence for it? And what is the evidence for reciprocity? I shall leave it at that then. Thank you, Sam.
Very much, Deputy. Senator Ballard.
Thank you, sir. I can't believe it, but it's it was actually 16 years ago I first stood for election in St Brelade's, both as a deputy as a constable, and I got well beaten on both occasions, and it left some scars, to say the least. But one of the things that was said to me when I was knocking on doors and rumours that were thrown at me, especially in the 2005 election, was I wasn't born in Jersey, which I found quite strange. But it's one of a number of potentially discriminatory views that some judge a candidate's validity on. To this day, I can't understand why people think that was a necessity. being, in fact, I remove being Jersey born from anything I'm going to put on anything I do in future in regards to being a candidate, because you should be judged on your ability, not the fact that you were born in the island. As much as I think we have a diverse community, I still think this is still a deep-seated problem with some nationalistic ideas in Jersey that work against this assembly being as diverse and as representative as it should be. Many want elected representatives not only to be a British national, but as I said, Jersey born, have the right surname. That's another thing that was brought up with me, and have gone to the right school. Well, I'm sorry, that has to change. But like most things in the island, we have to change incrementally. And for me, this is a step in the right direction. It doesn't meet everybody as far as some people want to go, but for me, it's a step in the right direction. This lowers the bar. And frankly, if Deputy Tadyer brought forward a proposition to lower that bar or remove it, then I would support it. This assembly should be open to all, not just the chosen few. But to change attitudes often takes time. And we need to educate and inform more widely why we should be more open to those who can be elected to our assembly. Deputy Ash, I do love his sports analogies. I'm not sure where they're going sometimes, but he went on quite a bit about being members of various organisations or golf clubs or whatever. But in my view, you don't have to be a member of a golf club to play golf, in the same way for me that you don't have to be a British national to be part of our assembly. I'm in a camp that believe that the electorate will decide whether a candidate is suitable, is in possession of the necessary skills, and as someone they believe will represent them. We, all of us, have to support and promote candidates who represent all of our diverse community, irrespective of age, background, nationality, ethnicity, or religion. And that's something that we promote extremely as one of our major principles within Progress Jersey. I will support this proposition, and I'll support any proposition that removes discrimination. So, sir, I'll leave it there, but that's my view. We need to support this proposition. It doesn't go as far as many want to go, but it is, for me, a step in the right direction. Thank you, sir.
Senator Santamese.
Thanks, sir. I'm pleased to follow Senator Pallett, who I think made some very good points, and I agree with much of what he just said. I'm going to speak honestly about how I feel about this proposition, and I'll probably use stronger language than has been used thus far. I'm going to say it how I see it, and it is that this proposition, if it didn't have a context, would be a disgrace. It is promoting discrimination. That's what this proposition does, pure and simple. It says if you're from these territories, your loyalty is taken for granted. But if you're from these territories, you're treated with suspicion, your loyalty is presumed against, and you must go through a humiliating North Korean style ritual to prove otherwise. That disgusts me. I've used an example several times before, which members will be fed up of, but I'll keep using this example because it makes the point, which is that under our current rules, you can come to Jersey from Pitcairn Island on the other side of the world that has nothing in common with Jersey, apart from the fact that if you're born there, you're granted British citizenship automatically. You can come to Jersey, you can kick your feet up for 2 years, do nothing, make no effort to integrate, not be involved in anything at all, and you're allowed to run for election to this state's assembly. Yet, if you came from Madeira when you were a few months old, brought over with your parents, schooled in Jersey, speak perfect English, worked here, educated here, served your community, served in the honorary police, and all the rest of it, you're not allowed to run for election. That, sir, is discrimination pure and simple. And I think those who support that rule ought to just be clear and say that they support discrimination in this instance. I know that it's not a fashionable thing to say that you're in favour of discrimination, but if that's what it is, then let's just be clear about that debate. We can either have a discriminatory system or not have a discriminatory system. And the straws that are clutched at to justify these rules really are ridiculous. I'm sorry to my good friend and colleague Deputy Higgins, who asked a ridiculous question in his speech about what other countries do and where else would allow this sort of thing. I give him this very simple advice: get in his car, drive to St. Wands, and you'll be able to see one of those places just on the horizon. It's called Guernsey, and I believe the other Channel Islands have the same rules as well, where there is no citizenship requirement. The only requirement you have to satisfy to be able to serve the public is to have the support of the public through the ballot box at an election, how it should be, offering the people the opportunity and not depriving of that for these frankly bizarre reasons. The Council of Ministers comments make another ridiculous point in here, where they distinguish between British citizenship and the Life in Jersey test, saying that British citizens owe their allegiance to the head of state and not to any individual country or territory which forms part of the British family. Well, firstly, sir, that is not true in itself. There are millions of people within the British family who don't particularly have any allegiance to the head of state or to that system that creates the constitutional monarchy in the UK. They have their citizenship for no reason other than that they happen to have been born in the UK or a British territory. We're simply given that citizenship because the rules say they have it, not because they asked for it, not because they applied for it, and not because they do in their heart have any sort of allegiance to that system. But if this was about an allegiance to the head of state, then why do we not let citizens from the Commonwealth realms run for election in Jersey? Why don't we have New Zealand citizens allowed to run, because it's the same head of state there? Why not Jamaican citizens? Why not citizens of Tuvalu? But they don't count, apparently, even though this is apparently about allegiance to the head of state. So these reasons are ridiculous. If your loyalty or your love for your home is not determined by what document you do or don't have, and we can say as much as we like that, oh, there's no issue with there's no problem getting British citizenship. If they want to run for election, they can just do that, ignoring the fact that it costs £1,000. Most people don't have that sort of money lying about to do something which doesn't change anything in their heart and doesn't provide them any other rights if they've already got their housing qualifications or right to work or whatever. To spend £1,000 on that puts them at an automatic disadvantage. It makes it harder for people from our minority communities to serve this assembly. And I disagree with what Deputy Pershard said in her speech about Deputy Gardner representing many of those people. It's axiomatic that she can't, because she was one of those who was able to afford to do that process. And this is meant to be about people who can't afford to do that process. So I don't agree with that either. But in closing, despite my harsh words about this proposition, I said that this proposition without a context would be a disgrace. But of course, it does have a context. It comes in the context of us trying to chip away at discrimination in this assembly and having no luck at it, and rules actually being strengthened to make this club we're privileged to sit in even more exclusive when we ought to be doing the opposite. And so I can justify voting in favour of this proposition for one reason and one reason only, which is that even though it's discriminatory, even though it goes against my principles and what I'd like to see, it will provide a slightly easier route into this assembly than what currently exists for people of other nationalities, which I think the island would benefit from. And with a few more of those people in here, working with other members, winning hearts and minds and changing views, then perhaps that would be a step to getting rid of these discriminatory rules. Have a proper electoral system where the people of Jersey decide who represents them without regard to these weird obsessions with documents and spending £1,000 to acquire them. So I'll vote in favour of this proposition, but I think these constant debates where discrimination is justified does absolutely nothing for our community and does not show us in a positive light.
Thank you, Senator. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I thank Senator Mezek for the speech he just made. This is a really difficult one to look at. The simple truth is that we are discussing this because of inadequacy in what has gone previously. To me, right from the beginning, I would say that it's simple to me. If you commit to Jersey by taking up residency, you go through all the qualification processes, perhaps you try to buy somewhere to live, or you pay ridiculous amounts of rent and you commit to working and paying your tax and bringing your children up here and the commitment that goes to that, then you should be able to stand for election. Because ultimately, the ultimate arbiter of whether you are suitable for this role or not is the electorate. And if you make your case and if you campaign well and if you stand on clear policies, hopefully you will be elected and you'll be able to instigate those policies. So I have, however, problems with this proposition in a similar way. First of all, I think the very notion that the Council of Ministers will develop a Life in Jersey test is concerning to me, and because you pay your money and you take your choice as to what Life in Jersey test will look like. To me, I think everybody should be able to quote the first 20 elements of the periodic table, but that's just a personal wish that I would like to see, perhaps even the first 30, so that everybody knows a little bit of chemistry as they move through life. That's a bias on my place, but that is not a sensible thing to put into a residency test. Perhaps this test should include an explanation of the residency laws, because that's always an interesting conversation when you have visitors over from the UK. And I am an immigrant. I've been here for 20 years or so. Our children grew up here, but I remain an immigrant. I am not Jersey born, but I feel that I have made huge commitment to Jersey from day one when I arrived, and we sold up in the UK and came over here. It's a huge step to make. And I worked in the teaching profession here for 20 years. I would not want to have to take a test in order to prove some sort of strange allegiance to the place that I'm committing to. And so it worries me as well, what would this test look like? Will it reflect all sections of our society? Will one of the questions be the best route for a hybrid 4x4 for the nanny to take the children to school? Or will it be, I'll give you an example, Terry has just found himself a job after being on Social Security, having lost the previous job. He immediately informed Social Security that he is to start work on the 1st of February, who, by the rules of Social Security, immediately stop his benefit because they don't want to have an overpayment. Therefore, Terry has no means of income for the next month and cannot pay his rent or feed his family. Perhaps the question is, please mark on the map the nearest food banks for Terry to attend so he can survive for a month. Is that going to be the type of question that's needed? Because that's the sort of issue that we are dealing with day in, day out as states members. And without an understanding of that, should you qualify as a states member? Perhaps it should be something about a wider understanding of the world. Perhaps identify capital cities, such as the difference between Budapest and Bucharest. That might be useful for states members. Or what is the price of a litre of milk? That's a really good question, because that really is the very basics of our life here, the basic cost of living. What's the average rent on the island? What is your tenancy rights when you take somewhere to live from a landlord who you will never see because they don't even live on the island? Where is the best place to gather sloes in the autumn? That's a good Jersey question, sir, and something I'd be very interested to know about. So I will say as well that perhaps I feel I was a little hard on Senator Pallett earlier because I was a bit annoyed by what I called a waste of time, but he made some very good points when he spoke. And this notion of whether you were born here, what your background is here, that comes up so often that we need to move away from. And so to me, we failed as an assembly before when we did not lift the British citizenship need. But so what do we do now? I understand the concerns with this piece of this proposition. I understand how it's interpreted as discriminatory, and so it is. And I think Senator Mazik explained it very, very well. If you are from one area, you have to take a test because you are not trusted. And I would say to Deputy Ash, these simplified popularist notions that you have of in-grouping and out-grouping of football teams or whatever else, or your golf clubs, your golf club. So it does not help the debate. And indeed, sir, it is part of the problem. And I think so it's a classic example of the sort of unconscious bias that people are encountering when they come to this topic. So what do we do today? Do we say, well, so this shouldn't exist, you shouldn't need this, and we get nowhere? Because if we don't say that we will accept this small step, however inadequate it may be, then we end up in the position where we are now, which is hugely discriminatory. It means that some good, committed people on this island cannot stand for election. And then the electorate does not have the sort of choice it wants. And so I say that because one of the most important things for governance that comes through from anything that you read, anything that you look at, anything you encounter in terms of politics and representation, is that the government that we have must be representative of the population it stands to speak for. And so we are not. And until we address that issue, we will never be. And so one of the ways to do that is to perhaps take this small step. And so, yes, I do have to also hold my nose if I was to vote for this, because there are serious problems with it, particularly the oath. I don't know what that will consist of, and the very fact that we are asking some sections of the population to prove themselves more than others. And so there is an issue in our society for many, many groups who have to be better than the average in order to be noticed. And I abhor that. And I don't want to see that happening. So what do we do? Well, so this will be a small step, but hopefully it will increase our diversity. And then perhaps we can come back to this and make a genuine decision about the way in which we elect people on this island and remove the barriers that are false barriers. And can I say one more thing, sir? Sorry. Deputy Higgins, you used the word reciprocity, and I'd like to compliment you in using that word. So there is an example of reciprocity in Papua New Guinea. There's a great documentary called Onka's Big Mocha. And what Onka does, and the way he becomes a big man in that society, is to give away everything he owns, to leave himself with nothing, in the notion that reciprocity in their society means he will gain more back through his giving. And that's what we have to do as an assembly. We have to make the steps, not look at other societies and say they're inadequate, we'll be inadequate too, but we have to make that step. This is a tiny little step on the way, and I do not think it's perfect. I think it is far from perfect, but sir, I may well be holding my nose and voting for this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Taddy, do you have a question for the Attorney General?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So the question to the Attorney General really regards Part D of the proposition, and can he confirm that if this is voted for today, it will be necessary for a change in the law to be made to say that non-British, to remove the British nationality requirement as it currently stands in the law?
Are you able to advise on that immediately, Mr. Attorney, or would you like a little time? There are at least two more members wishing to speak.
Sir, I believe I can answer that question now.
Thank you.
Sir, Deputy Taddy is correct in that it will require an amendment to the States of Jersey law and the Conotabs law. In terms of whether it requires a removal of the requirement to be a British citizen, I'm not sure as it has to go that far. It may be that that an amendment can be made so that passing the Life in Jersey test is an alternative to the British citizen requirement, so that there are two avenues to election for the states. I hope that.
Thank you very much.
So could I ask a supplementary? That's helpful to start. So could the Attorney General give an indication of what the likely wording is? Would it, for example, be that to be eligible you must either be a British citizen or not be a British citizen but have passed the nationality test as prescribed by the Council of Ministers, or whatever the wording would be?
Well, sir, obviously the detailed drafting would be a matter for the Law Drafting Office, but in principle what the Deputy suggests sounds as though that would be the correct principles to follow in compiling that amendment to those laws.
So would there be any, given that the stakes are quite high for this, for example, many people will be doing the test specifically and only in order to become a candidate in an election where they wouldn't otherwise be able to do that. Is there likely to be an appeal process on the results of the test? So somebody who thinks that they should have passed the test or that their answer wasn't interpreted correctly, is there likely to be any kind of appeal mechanism for somebody who fails the test and therefore fails to be a candidate perhaps only weeks before an election?
Well, sir, I think that's a matter I've not considered. I think that would be a matter for detailed law drafting instructions. So I'm not sure that I can provide an answer on that immediately. Certainly thought would need to be given to whether there should be an appeal mechanism in relation to someone who has failed that test.
Okay, Attorney General, sir.
Very well, thank you. Deputy Connie Harbison-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Like others, I applaud Deputy Gardner for bringing this proposition, sir. I don't want to repeat the content of some of the excellent speeches made so far, but would wish to comment that in my endeavours to recruit for the Honorary Police, applications are often made by non-British born individuals, men and women from diverse backgrounds, and if elected, they prove to be excellent members of our team. They are committed, and I perceive, sir, see it as a way of integrating in the community, learning our ways, and aspiring to further island involvement. I don't believe, sir, I've seen reference in Deputy Gardner's report to any communication with the Lieutenant Governor's office. My understanding is that they manage the process through which people have to go to become British citizens. So I feel they would have a contribution to make, and it's regrettable that the Lieutenant Governor is prevented from contributing to the debate. Many of us have what I might describe as a hybrid family background, and that makes us what we are. My father was British, my mother was Belgian, but naturalised British, and I was born in St Bernard's. So I leave others to take a view on my diverse background, but I expect to contribute to my community, as indeed my parents did, as immigrants to the island soon after the last war. In conclusion, sir, I fully support parts A and B of the proposition, but for similar reasons rehearsed by others, struggle with C and D, and I therefore ask that the proposer requests that the vote be taken in 4 parts. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Connie. Deputy Basson.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Deputy Gardner for bringing forward this proposition because it has been quite thought-provoking. But often in Deputy Gardner's speeches in the States, she asks questions of the proposer and makes up her mind on those. So like members have said, I do have a few questions for Deputy Gardner, which I don't think are resolved in her report. And the first question, which I think has already been touched on, is what consultation or communication has she had with Privileges and Procedures Committee over the changes to the public elections law, which would need to be incorporated? And given that her proposition asks for the new test to be produced by October 2021, can I ask, because I'm not aware, what consultation or communication has she had with the Education Department in order to put this test together, and also how it would be, what process would it be to validate that, and whether it requires any legal structure behind that in order to achieve that. Just as members will be aware, there's a significant work programme in train from the Education Department across all sections of the department, and when she's in her report she says departmental budgets can cover this, and that no extra, it doesn't even touch on the manpower implication, it doesn't talk about manpower aspects. I wonder if the deputy can be a bit more specific about what, you know, she in her report she says which can be absorbed from departmental budgets. As far as I'm aware, education hasn't been contacted, and which departmental budgets is the deputy talking about, because we just don't have that clarity. So I would like the deputy to answer those questions in order to assist the assembly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy, does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Chief Minister.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just wanted to mainly address parts C and D, and to kind of reinforce a number of the comments we made already. But I think really just want to emphasise, sir, that no matter what our views are, and I'm kind of going back over comments I've made in the past as well, no matter what our views are, no matter what sometimes the public think of us, representing the island in this assembly is an honour. And we all know it's also hard work, and that's not denigrating anybody who might want to be coming or anything along those lines, but we also know that the public outside don't actually properly know or have an understanding of exactly what we do. And that's irrespective of our different political views. But for me, it's also about because of the importance of the decisions we do take, there is a higher level of responsibility that surrounds that. And for me, then, that's why in relation to Part C and D, sir, taking on British citizenship, if people want to represent the island, who aren't normally naturalised citizens of the island, if that's the right expression, that does show the commitment that they want to take, because it is a higher level of representation. So really, sir, again, like many others, I think, I don't support diluting that particular position. And again, sir, you know, it's been said before, but I think we need to be reminded, you know, if you pick on certain significant other countries, you take France, a candidate must have French citizenship. In Ireland, candidates, if they want to become part of the TD, must be an Irish citizen. Sorry, sir. Australia, House of Representatives must be an Australian citizen. The US requires a member of the House to be at least 25 years old and have been at least a US citizen for at least 7 years. And that's just some information I think we were given last time around. We had a similar debate. But for me, that means there is recognition generally in jurisdictions, not across the board, but in many jurisdictions, that to represent the people of the state or the island or the nation you're in the Assembly and the Parliament, you should be a citizen of that country. And in our case, that means being a British citizen. And as a British Crown dependency, for me, it's incredibly important that the members who are representing Ireland as this Assembly should be British citizens, and that shouldn't be a diluted position. I really emphasise that that shouldn't divert away from the fact that we have a very diverse and rich community. It's fantastic for the island, but that is the position, the constitutional position we have, and that's why I think that should be maintained. And to reiterate almost the comments we had on the end of our comments to Deputy Gardner's proposition, which was around enhancing the understanding of Jersey identity, we think can be achieved through the existing programmes of work, but including on the island piece of work on the island identity being led by the Deputy Bruville, and that's very much probably better being encouraged as a community-based process. But if the Assembly wants us to do that side, we can obviously work on it further. But very particularly for me, Part C and D, I won't be supporting any of the proposition, but Part C and D are the ones that for me are the critical ones, and I do strongly believe that members of this Assembly should have taken the British citizenship requirements as required, sir. And on that basis, I won't be supporting the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Chief Minister. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition? Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. I don't want to go over anything that anyone else has said, because I think some really good points have been made. I have struggled with this in the same way that my Reform Jersey colleagues have already communicated to members. But I did want to bring up a couple of points. I think the point that Senator Pallett made in reference to the importance that some people place on people's surnames. Now, I count myself very lucky that I was born here. I'm extremely proud to have been born here, and I always promote the island whenever I can. But I have faced those, I've been faced with situations similar to what Senator Pallett described, and it was extremely difficult for me to stand up for myself sometimes in those situations, especially when I was younger, because I think it is completely wrong to be judged on your surname, and that shouldn't happen. I shouldn't have to prove myself that I am worthy of being here or that I am capable just because my surname isn't an English surname. So the reason that I struggle with this is because it is a compromise. It's not ideal, and that's been brought up numerous times during this debate. One of the points that another point that I'd like to make is that actually, do we ask the participants of the Youth Assembly whether they hold a passport? Now, I actually asked the greffier this question, and no, we don't. So why don't we? Well, it's my view that we don't do that because we want to nurture and encourage their interest in politics, and because we recognise that they are Jersey residents and that they have every right to take part in the Youth Assembly. If I'm honest, sir, I get a little bit angry when we start quoting and looking for comparisons in other countries, especially when it seems to me that we only really look at, or some of us only look at other countries when it's convenient to us. And we only look at certain countries that are convenient to us. Shouldn't we be striving to do what's in the best interests of the people? What's best practice, not necessarily what other countries do? During this COVID pandemic, for example, we heard that many a times from the Chief Minister himself, saying that we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to other countries. Now, I think we should be following best practice, and ultimately, best practice would be to allow anybody to stand for election, regardless of whether they were born in Jersey or hold a British passport. And actually, on that point, I recently learned through a couple of constituency cases that if I had been born in the last few years, and for whatever reason, both of my parents had at some point in the 5 years before I was born, unfortunately lost their job and become dependent on income support, for example, regardless of how many years they would have lived on this island prior to my birth, if at any time in those 5 years before I was born, they become dependent on the state, I would not qualify for British citizenship. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are not aware of that. And I think that is shocking, because my parents could have been here for years. And again, we've heard examples like those of people who come over when they're very, very young. So, sir, I count myself even more lucky that my parents were already settled here, that fortunately my father moved over to the UK when he was very, very young, and that I have British citizenship. So my uneasiness comes about having to do a test, because what is there to say that all of us here today would actually be capable of passing this test and passing it first time? I think the point that Deputy Tadia made, that the election is a test, is a really good point, and I completely agree with that. And actually, I think we need to be reminded, all of us need to be reminded that actually the only reason we are here is because the electorate voted for us. So actually, are we now saying that we don't trust them? Because I think we have to remember they put us all here. That's what being a democracy is about. The power is in the hands of the public. So, sir, I will be supporting this proposition, even though in my eyes it's not ideal. I would like to see, do away with any kind of citizenship, or like Senator Maddox said, this obsession with having a document. But I will be supporting it because it does give more of a chance for more people to come forward. And if this can happen for the next election, then even better. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? If no other member wishes to speak on the proposition, I close the debate and call upon Deputy Gardiner to respond.
Thank you, sir. And I'm grateful for all members for contributing for this debate. And I think the speeches just show how much components it's included. It does include identity. What does it mean to be Jersey? It does include immigrants and integration and immigration. It does include legal, and one of the words that was used several times, it's discrimination. And I'll start with addressing discrimination. First of all, I haven't created two-tier system that we have now. It was a long time before I came to this assembly. Deputy Tadia used the word discrimination, I don't know how many times. I think that the proposition, amended proposition that we were debated in September was much more discriminatory than we have today. Because if that proposition would pass, not me and not many other members of the community would be able to stand, because I didn't have Commonwealth citizenship and I didn't have a European citizenship. I had Israeli citizenship if I wouldn't take British, but I did take British, thank God. So if we are talking about discrimination, let's be clear and follow our principles. I agree with members that it's not easy compromise. Is it compromise? Yes, it is compromise. Is it discriminatory? Yes, it is a bit discriminatory. It's less. And members who I discussed this proposition with, and by the way, I didn't launch this proposition almost for 3 months. The proposition was written in 2 different forms within 5 days since our last debate. And one of the things, and this is for Deputy maybe Southern I can address, one of the things that I was sitting, it's about equality and not equality, discrimination, because I did accept the people who was born in, person who was born in Jersey, you have birth of right. It's fair, not fair, but this is the world. This is the way world works. You have birth, right birth, where the place where you was born. And one of the things that I was considering, do we need to go, you were born in Jersey or you come from elsewhere in the world, including from the UK? And I was really considering, because it would be more equal than it would be now. At the same time, we do have status quo. We're part of the Crown dependencies. We are connected to the UK. And another point, we don't want to make things worse. British citizen can stand for the election. Let's allow other people to come on board, not make it narrow, not to put extra barriers, just remove one of the barriers. Deputy Higgins asked for the proof. If we'll open it, if the people from different community will stand and be elected, we'll have more engagement. I don't have numbers in front of me, but I'm sure that I can find and provide. The only thing that I can tell to Deputy Higgins, that I personally receive constituency cases from various parishes, not necessarily from St. Helier, but they are from immigrant background where the English is the second language. And I have no idea why, but maybe they feel that they can speak with not in perfect English, like my English is not perfect. And maybe they feel more comfortable, no idea why. And it took time, and some of the states members know that I contacted them and I asked, this is what I received, this is your constituents, and make the bridge. It's about the trust. And I know the Deputy House received lots of constituency care from Portuguese community. And definitely we are not have enough representation. I'll address points from from Senator Ferguson, and I agree with you. If we would have Jersey citizenship, it's National Parliament of Jersey, but we don't have Jersey citizenship. And this is the reason why I stand and I decided to bring this proposition forward. Deputy Ash, Deputy Ash mentioned several times in his speech, it's about commitment. Yes, it's about commitment. And it's really, really, really difficult to show, to test the commitment, to show the commitment. And it's about the education. I wish we would be introducing this test or this certificate or this ceremony, I would say 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, because anybody who was born in Jersey, and I would see as a vision that this test will come in some sort of form and ceremony will come in sort of form to anybody who was born in Jersey. And if you were born in Jersey or came when you were 10, 11, 12, and you have this coming to the age ceremony, and it can be used to stand for anything, to stand for the election. So in 20 years' time, or maybe in 10 years' time, this question it will not be valid because anybody who finished education in Jersey would have this certificate. And I'm going back to the legal point of view. It's nothing to do with immigration status, it's nothing to do with residential status. It's about certificate that can be used for various streams. Maybe one day the people who will receive permanent residence will receive certificate immediately. It is something that we will need to work on. It's the process. It just to start the process to take it this forward. As I said, it's not fair, and it will be individual cases that will not fair, but we are here only to make it as fair as possible and to find the solution that majority of the people can stand behind. And I'm grateful for Deputy Percher, Deputy Doble, Deputy Morel, Senator Pallett, and Senator Mazak, and Deputy Ward, and Deputy Alves, because these are not perfect, but I'm trying to think about out of the box to see how we can connect people, how we can make shared vision, shared identity, 21st century identity. Deputy Mason asked me about a public election PPC. I have had a conversation with, first of all, I did check with the grapher. I did raise it with the Deputy Alves. I think that I did have a conversation with Deputy Labi, but it was general conversation before the lodging the proposition. I did have the conversation with Deputy Greville, and we discussed that the test and ceremony can be used for various integration and connection and identity developments. And she does make it clear that it's important for her that it will be British citizenship. At the same time, the test and the ceremony area about the knowledge and connection is something that she is considering. I did I did notify the bailiff and ask, and they said whatever the assembly will decide and the government will decide, the ceremony can be performed. And about the test, I want to make it clear to the states members. Test exists. I posted the link in the chat and it's part of my report, so anybody from the public can go link through the report. The test does exist. The questions exist. They exist as a part, so you have to, I don't remember now, 25 or 30 questions, and part of them, like 4 or 5 questions, are around Jersey. It's technical part as a first step to separate and make a test from already existing question, already existing materials. It runs between Home Office and Highlands. People call to the Highlands paying 50, 100 pounds. I don't remember exactly the number, but that can be, it will not cost the people who would like to take the test and go through, they will pay for their test. The test, it's the numbers, multiple choice, and you can take as many times as you want. You pass, you pass, you don't pass, you don't pass. And it's about the knowledge. Yes, it's not perfect. The world is not perfect. The world is not fair, but we can do as much as we can to bring it together. And we need to start somewhere. We need to start to think out of the box and do the first step out. And for the Constable of Saint Brelade, you know that I respect your wish, and I would take part A, part B, and separate. So part A separate, part B separate, and part C and D together, because it does need to go together. So the importance of diversity and inclusion in any parliament cannot be understated. No more so than in Jersey, where the population includes so many variety of groups. The certificate will allow a wider selection of candidates to stand for election, which can be only benefit. And this proposition is aiming to find the way where the new member, that we get new members fully capable of showing their have studied and understood uniqueness and historical significance of this small island. And I ask for the appel.
You're asked for a point of clarification by Deputy Tadeo. Would you give way for a point of clarification?
Sure.
Deputy Tadeo.
Thank you, sir. There are 2. So in her summing up speech, she said that she envisaged that a potential candidate could take the test as many times as they wanted to. Can she clarify how much a test would cost in her mind, and whether there's a time limit on being able to retake the test, or indeed a cost each time that somebody takes a test? Because I could envisage someone maybe, but in fact that's the question, so because otherwise it would be a second speech. And the other part, so it was raised during the debate about why, is she suggesting that we simply copy and paste the test that already exists in the British nationality test, citizenship test? And if that is the case, why has she asked the Council of Ministers to bring forward and develop a test? I think those questions were asked in the main debate, sir, and they don't seem to have been answered.
Thank you very much. Can you offer clarification of those matters, Deputy Gardner?
Yes, and I'm grateful for Deputy Tadeo to raising this with me. It is an option, and I asked Council of Ministers to develop that. Council of Ministers would have this flexibility. So the test exists, you can see the content that included, and it can be enhanced. For example, Deputy Ward suggested include residential laws, and I do think that people might need to be tested on various things. It's open. About the times, in my views, when I was writing this proposition, it was similar to how you're taking British citizenship test. And okay, I've done it from the first time, and somebody done it from the second, somebody done it from the third. And it's like, if you read the material and you look through this, you can pass. The cost of the test between what I remember, it's between 50 to 100 pounds, but maybe it's changed because I have done my citizenship test several years ago. Hope it helps.
And Deputy Masson, you also wish a point of clarification. Will you give way Deputy Gardner for a further point of clarification from Deputy Masson?
Yes, sure.
Deputy Masson.
Thank you, sir. And the deputy did respond to 2 of my questions, but the third one I didn't hear a response to, which was about the budgets. And in her report, she says it can come from budgets, but she didn't identify where she specifically thought the money would come from. And she's unable. And can she give an indication of how much she thinks this is going to cost? We didn't hear that at all.
Are you able to clarify that, Deputy Gardner?
I will try. First of all, when I have a discussion with the GRAF, the changes that needs to be brought to the law, it can be done within the budget that we have. So the changes to the law. The ceremony, it's about discussion, the Council of Ministers, and the similar ceremonies exist, and it can be adopted. And the same about the test. If we'll need extra budget, probably we'll look, but I'm not sure. We have already island identity. It says developing. We do have a test exist. So if we are talking, there are some financial implications, but I don't think they are much greater than it sounds in the first place. Hope it helps.
And I think, Deputy Gardner, you've asked for A and B to be taken separately and then C and D together.
Yes, please.
Very well. Well, then I'll ask the referee to place a voting link into the chat, and the vote will be on paragraph A of the proposition. And I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the referee to close the voting.
Sorry, excuse me, my chat has completely disappeared, so can I register as Paul, please?
Sure. Yes,
sorry,
Constable Martin.
Yes. Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's 19 votes for and 21 votes contra, no abstentions registered in the link, 3 votes for and 1 vote contra.
That makes it, as on my calculation, 22-22. Is that, you agree?
So I think you're mute, or I've gone. My sound's gone.
No, I am muted at the moment. I'm discussing with the greffier how to deal with this, because on a simple calculation, it's a tie, which means the proposition is defeated. But it's important, we think, to carry out a reconciliation, so we ensure that we have all the names correct, so we can give a very clear result. That will happen over the next minute or two. And so we'll put Part B to the Assembly for a vote, but I'm afraid we won't be able to confirm the outcome for Part A for a minute or two. In those circumstances, I would therefore ask the greffier to.
Does not Part B fall away if Part A is not carried?
Yes, Part B would fall away. The alternative then is that we simply wait. But I mean, the members can still vote on it, but it will fall away. The vote will be meaningless if A isn't passed. So probably the right thing to do in these circumstances is simply to wait until we have a result for Part A before we proceed any further. You have a point of order, Deputy Caddian.
No, sir, you've already ruled on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think I made the vote, sir. I was having trouble finding the.
Well, if somebody hasn't voted, I'm afraid it is now too late. What we have to do is to identify the votes that we've received, so that we're satisfied that we can call the result for that particular part of the proposition with accuracy.
So did you not have an oral vote from the Constable of St Martin?
Yes, I counted the oral vote from the Constable of St Martin, because that was done before we closed the voting formally, and that counted. Therefore, there were 3 votes outside of the link, and 1 vote contra outside of the link, and that makes it on the surface 21-21, 22-22.
Thank you, sir.
Mine would actually have been.
I'm sorry, Senator. We can't hear what your vote would have been because you didn't record a vote, and we're still calculating the votes. So
I was just hoping to help the reconciliation, sir.
Well, you can't say what your vote would have been if you haven't voted. So that won't assist our reconciliation, I'm afraid. Yes. Very well. The vote is called now at 22-22. It's a tie, and therefore the proposition falls because it requires a majority to pass.
Sir, could we have the for and again and called?
Those those voting per in the link were Deputy of St Martin, Deputy Alves, Deputy Gardner, Deputy Pershard, Deputy Pamplin, Deputy Doublé, the Constable of Grouville, Senator Valois, Deputy Ward, Constable of St Helier, Constable of St Brelade, Constable of St Saviour, Deputy Truscott, Deputy Southern, Senator Pallet, Senator Mezek, Senator Moore, the Constable of St Peter, and the Deputy of St John. In the chat, we also had the Deputy of St Mary, Deputy Morale, and the Constable of St Martin voted orally. Those voting contra were the Deputy of St Peter, Deputy Lehegra, Senator Gorse, Deputy Wickenden, Deputy Higgins, Deputy Aye, Deputy Pinnell, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Martin, Deputy Lewis, Deputy Guida, Senator Lafondre, Deputy Young, Constable of Trinity, Senator Farnham, Deputy Masson, Deputy of Greville, Constable of St John, Deputy of St Juan, Deputy Labby, the Constable of St Juan, and in addition to that, there was Deputy Ash.
Very well. In that case, A falling away, B, C and D also fall away, and that concludes the debate on this proposition. Very well, although it's past the time when normally we would adjourn, I did indicate that there will be a possibility for Senator Moore to add members to the Corporate Services panel. Do you wish to deal with that now, Senator, very quickly?
Thank you, sir. Yes, please.
Who would you propose?
Sir, I would like to propose Senators Pallett and Valois, please, sir.
And does that take, excuse me for not knowing this off the top of my head, but that doesn't take the number above the permitted number within the panel, does it?
That would take us back to 5, sir, which is how we did originally.
Very well. Are those names seconded? Those nominations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any other member wish to are there any other nominations? Well, if there are no other nominations, then Senators Pallett and Valois are members of the panel. We now move on to the organisation for future business. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. There have been the following changes to the arrangement of public business from what was listed on the consolidated order paper. The draft income tax payment of 2019 liability Jersey regulations P9 of 2021 have been lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources and is listed for the 23rd of March 2021. The Assembly is due to debate the foreshore policy and the migration control policy at the next sitting, so I anticipate that we will need to sit on Thursday. So with that change, I propose the arrangement of public business for future meetings.
Very well. Does anyone wish to comment upon the arrangements for public business before they are approved? Senator Font, Chief Minister.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sorry, one question actually for members is that P7, which is actually lodged by me, but it's effectively a joint proposition in relation to the Board of Governance for PAC, or for the Controller General, sorry, sir. I'm not entirely sure the background reasons to it. I think there was an administrative glitch somewhere, but in terms of lodging, and at the moment it's going to expire on Wednesday the 3rd. Having just heard the chair of PPC and her estimate on the time, it may or may not be an issue. I'm not sure what the situation is these days, but I was wondering if the Assembly would just agree to take it either a day early, effectively on the Tuesday, or whether actually it is the last item on the business. I think. Do I need to seek the Assembly's approval at this stage to take it during the next sitting on the 2nd of March, sir? I think there is an issue, as I understand it, really timing of the board.
It's already requires the permission of the Assembly to take to reduce the minimum lodging period. You would have to ask the Assembly for its agreement to do that, and you would also presumably wish to, as a belt and braces exercise, if I may put it that way, to arrange for the that to be dealt with early on in the order paper, so that it is dealt with prior to the expiration. That can be done now, or it can be done. It can be done at the beginning of the next meeting. It doesn't seem to me.
Can I seek permission to do now?
Well, I used to speak, Deputy Gardner.
Yes, sir. And I just would like to support Chief Minister, as the proposition hasn't been lodged due to some admin one day missing. And it is extremely important as a Board of Governance for the Controller and Auditor General with our part on the 17th of March. So it would be important if we can debate it on the 2nd.
Thank you for that. So, Chief Minister, you make the proposition that the matter is the lodging period is shortened and the matter is debated at the next sitting, yes?
Yes, sir.
And that's seconded by you,
Yes, sir, seconded, sir.
Yes, well, and Deputy Gardner has spoken in favour on it. Any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak on this, then could anyone indicate a contrary view? Otherwise, I'll take this as a standing vote approving this particular proposition. Very well, no one's indicated a contrary intention. Accordingly, yes, Chief Minister, the Assembly has, on a standing vote, agreed that this may be taken on the 2nd of March sitting.
Thank you, sir.
Very much indeed. Very well. If no other member wishes to raise any points on future business, I again will operate on the basis of a standing vote unless anyone indicates the contrary, that the Chair of PPC's proposition for future business is accepted by members. No one has indicated a contrary intention, and accordingly, on a standing vote, the arrangements for future business are approved. Accordingly, that brings the business of the Assembly to an end, and the estate stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 2nd of March.
Thank you, sir.